Chapter 43-43. Hearing these words, the Divine Kingdom's ruler's hand that was holding the teacup tightened. As for Ice Dragon, he was completely watching a show at this moment. Although Qin Feiyong and others ran back to the Sky Cloud realm without permission, which made him quite dissatisfied, it was good to see the Divine Kingdom's ruler's exasperated look. You really don't want to know? If you don't want to know, we will tell you. The 5 major races of the Divine Kingdom have been wiped out by us. Especially the Sea Clan and the Beast Clan that you regarded as your confidants. Now none of them are left. They were all killed by us. There is also an old thing named Yu Lao. We don't know who he is to you, but he also died miserably. You don't believe it? Old Qin, take out their ruler's divine weapons. The madman grinned. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and Tianju sword, Godslayer halberd, and Star Tower, 3 high-level rulers' divine weapons appeared. This is, Lin Yi and Fire Python's pupils shrank. Of course, they have seen rulers' divine weapons before. These 3 rulers' divine weapons were obviously countless times stronger than the ones they had seen before. At this moment, facing the Divine Kingdom's ruler, the 3 rulers' divine weapons were a little afraid. Be tough for me. You are now our ruler's divine weapons. Don't be a coward and embarrass us. The madman stared at the 3 rulers' divine weapons. The 3 rulers' divine weapons artifact spirits were bitter in their hearts. Don't you know who the other party is? That is the ruler of the Divine Kingdom who created them. In front of such an existence, how could they not be nervous? At the same time, Ice Dragon was also surprised. He didn't expect that in just these few years, these kids had already conquered half of the Divine Kingdom. The destruction of the 5 major races was equivalent to destroying half of the Divine Kingdom. Now, there was only one central dynasty left in the Divine Kingdom. Give me some face and take a look. The madman swayed the 3 high-level rulers' divine weapons with a smug look. Crack! With a crisp sound, the teacup in the hands of the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom shattered. Madman was shocked, but thinking that Ice Dragon was also present, he was fearless. He laughed and said, "Speaking of which, who is Yu Lao to you? I heard that he has a very high status in the Central Dynasty. Even your son, the Emperor, ordered his subordinates to rescue him no matter what." Whoosh! The dominator of the Divine Kingdom stood up, looked up at the madman and asked, "Did you really kill him?" His tone contained a bone-piercing chill. So angry? It seems that this Yu Lao's relationship with you is not simple. But it's a pity that there's nothing left of him. This is also your fault. Why didn't you tell us earlier? If you had told us earlier, we would have kept his head and delivered it to you personally. Madman shook his head with a look of regret. You're courting death. The sovereign of the Divine Kingdom was enraged, and the power of laws surged out. The madman's expression changed, and he quickly pulled Zhuo Shaoxian back, roaring, "Old Qin, I'll leave it to you. Yes. Take care of it." The white-eyed wolf also pulled Fire Dance and quickly fled. Qin Feiyong stared at the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom, his eyes burning with fighting spirit. He said to Lin Yi, Li Feng, and the fire python behind him, "I also want to experience his strength. Step back." "Can you do it?" "He is the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom." Li Feng was worried. The sovereign's strongest means is nothing more than the power of origin. But in hell, he can't control the power of origin of the Divine Kingdom at all. Besides, he is also a human. Don't be afraid of him just because he is the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom. Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered. Li Feng, Lin Yi, and the fire python looked at each other and quickly retreated to the side of the madman and the white-eyed wolf. You have courage. Ice Dragon nodded with an appreciative smile. With a wave of his hand, a huge barrier appeared above the forest of gods and demons. He said, "Don't worry about harming the creatures of hell. Go all out and fight him." Qin Feiyong glanced at Ice Dragon and stepped into the barrier. "Are you looking for death? I will fulfill your wish." The sovereign of the Divine Kingdom laughed and rushed into the barrier like lightning. He slammed his palm at Qin Feiyong with monstrous murderous intent. "Without the power of origin, I want to see what you can do." Qin Feiyong was not to be outdone. Boom! An invisible force rolled out. A punch blasted out. In an instant, the fist and the palm collided. A wave of destructive energy surged out in all directions like a torrent. toppling mountains and overturning seas. Just the collision of physical strength and power stunned Lin Yi and the fire python. If Ice Dragon set up a barrier with such destructive force, the mythical forest would be razed to the ground in minutes. One was the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom, and the other was the sovereign of the Black Tortoise world. A pinnacle showdown between sovereigns. The strength of the two was almost neck and neck. Sure enough, without the power of origin, you are no different from us. Qin Feiyang's confidence skyrocketed. His fists were like a storm as he attacked the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom. Bang! Bang! In just a few seconds, the two had exchanged hundreds of rounds. This sovereign of the Divine Kingdom doesn't seem to be that powerful. The fire python grumbled. Ugh! Frenzy White-Eyed Wolf, Fire Dance and Zhuo Shaoxian looked at each other. Sure enough, the ignorant were fearless. He dared to say such words. Back then, if Ice Dragon and Small Beast came to rescue them, they would have died in the hands of this person as soon as they entered the Divine Kingdom. The power of origin of the Divine Kingdom was not to be trifled with. Boom! Another fist met. Qin Feiyang and the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom took a few steps back. The sovereign of the Divine Kingdom said in disbelief, I really didn't expect that in just these few years, you have grown to this point in the Divine Kingdom. My growth is not something you can imagine. Qin Feiyang became more and more courageous as he fought. The ultimate profundity of the law of life and death, and the ultimate profundity of the 6 strongest laws were activated at the same time. Dual will of heavenly Tao erupted. What? The sovereign of the Divine Kingdom was shocked. He remembered that when he entered the Divine Kingdom, this person had just comprehended the ultimate profundity of the law of life and death. As for the strongest laws, there were only the law of life and death, the law of life, and the law of cause and effect. But he didn't expect that after returning from the Divine Kingdom, there would be an additional ultimate profundity of the law of destruction, the law of space-time, and the law of time. How did he do it? Even Ice Dragon felt it was incredible. He didn't expect that it was Long Chen who helped. If he knew that all this was because of Long Chen's soul manipulation, his expression would be very interesting. Brother Frenzy, Brother Wolf, what's going on? Lin Yi also had a look of surprise. Back then, when Qin Feiyang comprehended the ultimate profundity of the law of life and death, she had already heard about the battle with the king and others in the Western continent. Therefore, she knew a little about the will of heavenly Tao. Now, the will of heavenly Tao that Qin Feiyang erupted was obviously much stronger than before. This is the benefit of comprehending the law of life and death. I can master 2 will of heavenly Tao. Frenzy's face was full of yearning. He had been in seclusion all these years to study the law of life and death. Who wouldn't desire dual will of heavenly Tao? But, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't fuse the law of life and death. That kind of powerlessness and difficulty was simply despairing. Come on. Let me see what you're capable of. Don't lose your origin power. You'll become a paper tiger. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the 7 ultimate profundities carried the power to destroy the world as they madly charged toward the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom. This kid is a bit arrogant. As a sovereign, how can his strength be weak? Well, let him learn a lesson so that he won't be too arrogant, Ice Dragon whispered. But Qin Feiyang didn't hear these words. He stared at the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom. The 7 ultimate profundities were almost in front of the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom. Facing these 7 ultimate profundities, even experts like the sovereign and the Divine King had to avoid them. But the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom stood in front of them without moving. So calm, Madman murmured. Boom! The next moment, a monstrous might emerged. The sovereign of the Divine Kingdom looked coldly at Qin Feiyang and said with contempt, Don't you know that to become the true sovereign of a world, one must first comprehend the law of life and death? As his voice fell, the power of life and death roared out. The sovereign of life and death instantly appeared. What? When this scene appeared, not only Qin Feiyang, but Madman and the others also changed their expressions. They never expected that the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom also grasped the law of life and death. Wasn't it said that no one in the Divine Kingdom comprehended the law of life and death? What was going on? In the history of the Divine Kingdom, no one has comprehended the law of life and death. But can I, the sovereign of the Divine Kingdom, be considered an ordinary person? Kid, you underestimate this sovereign too much. The sovereign of the divine kingdom smiled sinisterly, and another ultimate profundities appeared. There were 9 ultimate profundities of the strongest law. In other words, they were the ultimate profundities of all ordinary laws. That's right. This sovereign of the divine kingdom grasped the ultimate profundities of all laws, including the law of light and darkness. So strong? Madman and White-Eyed Wolf's eyes trembled. The ultimate profundities of all laws: time, space-time, destruction, nothingness, karma, light and darkness, devour, death, life, thunder, slaughter, light, darkness, metal, wood, fire, force, and so on. Wasn't this the goal they were chasing now? And this sovereign of the divine kingdom had already reached the peak of this realm. Now you know how insignificant you are. The sovereign of the divine kingdom sneered. The various ultimate profundities erupted with a terrifying will of the heavens. It was also a dual will of the heavens. With a loud bang, the ultimate profundities of both sides collided violently. In the face of absolute suppression in numbers, Qin Feiyang's 7 ultimate profundities crumbled on the spot. Brother Feiyang, Lin Yi exclaimed in panic. Compared to when he was in the Sky Cloud realm, Qin Feiyang's strength had improved too much. It could be said that he could easily suppress the entire Sky Cloud realm by himself. But the other party's strength was even more terrifying. Mastering the ultimate profundities of all laws was simply unimaginable. Don't panic. Your brother Feiyang has more means than this. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf comforted him. But looking at the sovereign of the divine kingdom standing inside the enchantment, their eyes were more dignified than anyone else. Chapter 43-44. Rumble. Inside the enchantment, Qin Feiyang's situation was precarious. The divine kingdom's dominator's ultimate intent was like rolling thunder, shattering the vast sky and crazily attacking Qin Feiyang. It seems that you're not a paper tiger. Qin Feiyang narrowed his eyes slightly. 3,000 incarnations instantly appeared in the void behind him. That's right. Brother Feiyang still has this trump card. Lin Yi was shocked. As long as the 3,000 incarnations are activated, there is no enemy that Brother Feiyang can't defeat. As soon as the 3,000 incarnations appeared, 21,000 ultimate intent instantly appeared, exuding a terrifying divine power that was enough to destroy this continent. That's right. At this moment, without Ice Dragon's enchantment, the entire hell would definitely turn into ashes. After all, hell was too small. Not even 1/10 of the Sky Cloud realm. Even if you have mastered all the ultimate intent, you can't block my 21,000 ultimate intent. Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. Rumble. The 21,000 ultimate intent was like a runaway wild horse, covering the sky and earth. Sure enough, the dozens of ultimate intent of the divine kingdom's dominator were unable to fight back and collapsed on the spot. Immediately after, 21,000 ultimate profound meanings instantly drowned him. It's really not that good. The madman smiled. As soon as the 3,000 incarnations were activated, Qin Feiyang was basically an invincible existence. Even the dominator would still die. Phew! Qin Feiyang also let out a long sigh. The divine kingdom's dominator was indeed powerful, but without the power of the origin, he was still a lot weaker. If we can take the opportunity to kill him now, then we will have one less big problem. The White-Eyed Wolf muttered, staring at the battlefield that was drowned by the ultimate intent. There was some expectation in his eyes. After a while, dust fell to the ground. However, Qin Feiyang and the others were dumbfounded on the spot. The void of the enchantment had turned into a mess, but the dominator of the divine kingdom standing on the opposite side was unscathed. How is this possible? One must know. Now he had 21,000 ultimate profound meanings and 2 wills of the heavenly Tao. Among them, there were 3,000 ultimate profundities of the laws of life and death. How could such means not even injure the master of the divine kingdom? You guys are also naive. If this is the extent of my power, how can I rule such a large divine kingdom? The sovereign of the divine kingdom looked at the mad scientist and the others mockingly. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, although you are also the sovereign of the Black Tortoise realm, compared to me you are still too weak. No, to be exact, your position in the Black Tortoise world is equivalent to that of a guardian. What a joke. Even a sovereign can't possibly be this strong. Madman and the others clenched their fists tightly. Qin Feiyong stared at the ruler of the divine kingdom. He didn't even turn his head to look at the 3,000 incarnations as he roared. If we can't defeat him in the divine kingdom now, then we will have even less hope once he returns to the divine kingdom. Therefore, we cannot lose this battle. Yes, we can't lose. The 3,000 incarnations roared in unison. All the ultimate intents were activated once more. Carrying an apocalyptic aura, they once again attacked the sovereign of the divine kingdom. Ignorant child, when you step into my realm in the future, you will know how naive and laughable your actions are. The sovereign of the divine kingdom sneered. Boom! Before he finished speaking, the power of law surged out of his body. This was the law of death. It was very ordinary. There was nothing special about it. Looking at this law of death, Qin Feiyong and the others couldn't help but be puzzled. Previously, even after activating all the ultimate intents, they still couldn't block the 21,000 ultimate intents of the 3,000 incarnations. Now, with just one law of death, this person wanted to reverse the situation. Who was the naive one? Who was the laughable one? However, before they could speak, the law of death around the sovereign of the divine kingdom suddenly soared into the sky. Boom! Accompanied by a terrifying divine might, a giant black figure appeared in the sky. This giant figure was wrapped in a black robe, and death energy swirled around it. It wore a skull mask on its face, exuding a ferocious aura. Moreover, with the appearance of this giant figure, a gust of wind blew within the barrier, and dark clouds rolled. This was all condensed from the death energy. Qin Feiyong, who was inside the barrier, had never felt such a terrifying death energy. At this moment he had a very real feeling, as if he was in the 18 levels of hell, and there were the roars of ghosts and ghosts in his ears. There were even illusions in front of his eyes. It was as if he was looking at soldiers wearing armor and surging with death energy, breaking through the void, waving the sharp blades in their hands and pouncing towards him. What is this thing? Outside, Frenzy and the others also looked at the giant black figure in surprise. They had never seen it before. The various ultimate intents of the law of death also didn't have such a form. Moreover, even though they were separated by a barrier, they could still feel a sense of fatal danger. It was like a giant black shadow. As long as it waved its fist, they would be smashed to pieces. Clang! However, it wasn't over yet. Accompanied by a deafening noise, a dark stone door appeared behind the giant black figure. This was the gate of hell. It was tens of thousands of feet tall, and the death energy was monstrous. Boom! The next moment, another dark red waning moon rose into the sky. Not only the barrier, but even the divine demon forest outside was dyed dark red, giving people an illusion that they had entered an endless purgatory. Isn't this the supreme ultimate intents of the law of death? Frenzy murmured. Boom! However, before his voice faded, it was accompanied by a terrifying aura. The 18 levels of hell appeared. This, Qin Feiyong was also stunned. The ultimate intents of the law of death? Gate of hell, waning moon, 18 levels of hell. What was this person trying to do? You shouldn't have returned to the sky cloud realm, and you shouldn't have come to the Nether King's hell to provoke me, because if you had stayed in the divine kingdom, you could have lived a little longer. Now you will slowly walk towards destruction in the movement of death. The ruler of the divine kingdom raised his hand and pointed in the air. The gate of hell, waning moon and 18 levels of hell merged together with a dazzling divine light. The next moment, a dark red giant sickle appeared in the sky. It was hundreds of feet long. Every sawtooth on it flickered with a sinister light. At the same time, an unprecedented demonic aura erupted. This demonic aura had already surpassed the ultimate intents of the supreme ultimate intents, and it surpassed it by more than a little. Even the ultimate intents of the law of life and death were far inferior. It was simply unprecedented. Qin Feiyong stood in front of the giant black shadow, facing the giant sickle in the giant shadow's hand. An indescribable fear emerged in his heart. That's right. At this moment, fear and other emotions instantly drowned him. He couldn't even move. His legs seemed to be stuck in a quagmire, and there was only despair in his mind. This feeling was like facing the sky-swallowing beast. Yes, The current ruler of the divine kingdom gave him the same sense of crisis that the golden small beast gave him in the past. Little Qinzi, what are you doing? Now is not the time to sleepwalk. The white-eyed wolf roared. Sleepwalk? What a childish and ridiculous thing to say. He has now been drowned in fear and despair. To put it simply, he has been scared silly. You dare to challenge me with this little strength? You really don't know what death is. The ruler of the divine kingdom smiled contemptuously. With a wave of his hand, the giant black shadow raised the giant sickle in his hand and slashed at the void in front of him. The 21,000 ultimate intents of the 3,000 clones were almost in front of the ruler of the divine kingdom. The lethality of these 21,000 ultimate intents was obvious to all. Even the powerful divine kingdom did not dare to compete with them. However, at this moment, the giant black shadow merely waved the giant sword in his hand, and the 21,000 ultimate intents were all destroyed in an instant. That's right. In an instant all of them were destroyed. Without any resistance, they were as fragile as rotten wood. Who would be able to accept such a scene? Qin Feiyang could not accept it. Lunatic and the white-eyed wolf could not accept it either. Li Feng, Fire Dance, and Zhuo Shaoxian could not accept it either. It was too terrifying. 3000 ultimate intents of the law of life and death, 18,000 ultimate intents of the law of ultimate intents, and 2 wills of the great path. This terrifying technique that could sweep away everything was easily defeated by the giant sickle. What kind of strength was this? Wasn't the strongest technique in the world the ultimate intents? But now the ruler of the divine kingdom was using a technique that was many times more powerful than the ultimate intents. Even the kingdom of life and death was like an adult and a baby in front of this technique. What is this? How can it be so powerful? When they came back to their senses, Lunatic and the white-eyed wolf roared in disbelief. To defeat 21,000 ultimate intents with 2 wills of the great path, even a legendary divine weapon of the Dominator couldn't do this. They must be dreaming. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also stared at the giant black shadow and giant sickle behind the ruler of the divine kingdom, dumbfounded. His mind was in a mess, just like Lunatic and the white-eyed wolf. They could not believe what they were seeing, because this was far beyond their understanding of the ultimate intents. Do you understand now? If it weren't for the sky-swallowing beast and the ice dragon helping you, you would have died countless times. Killing trash like you is just a matter of waving my hand and nodding my head. Go repent in hell. The ruler of the divine kingdom smiled sinisterly. The giant black shadow raised the giant sickle in its hand. The terrifying demonic power made Qin Feiyang unable to move an inch, and his heart was filled with extreme fear. Get out of the way. Lunatic and the white-eyed wolf roared at the same time. Qin Feiyang didn't want to get out of the way. He wanted to, but at this moment he couldn't move. His heart could not help but set off a storm. He who had opened the door to all his potential was still imprisoned by this pressure. How strong was this? He didn't have the strength to fight back at all. He could only watch as the giant sickle fell. His entire body and mind were shrouded in the shadow of death. No, bastard, if you dare to kill him, we will fight you to the death. Lunatic and the white-eyed wolf roared angrily. All the ultimate intents were activated, and the wills of the great path erupted. Moreover, they also awakened the Sky Extinction Sword, the God-slaying halberd, and the Star Tower, the 3 high-level Dominator divine weapons. They didn't care about their lives and madly rushed toward the barrier. Chapter 43-45. However, 3 high-grade Dominator weapons and the ultimate intents of the mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf were unable to break through Ice Dragon's barrier. So strong. The 2 immediately looked at Ice Dragon. Ice Dragon glanced indifferently at the mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf. With a wave of his hand, Qin Feiyang, who was standing motionless within the barrier, disappeared without a trace. By the time everyone came back to their senses, Qin Feiyang had already appeared beside the mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf. Whoosh! Seeing that Qin Feiyang was safe, everyone let out a sigh of relief. What are you doing? However, the god of the divine kingdom stared at Ice Dragon with extreme anger. Ice Dragon said indifferently, "This is the Nether King's hell. Do you think it's appropriate for you to kill my people in front of me?" Hearing these biased words, the god of the divine kingdom couldn't help but clench his fists. What? You want to compete with me? Although I'm not a god, your strength might not be stronger than mine. Ice Dragon raised his head and looked at the god of the divine kingdom, his eyes filled with amusement. The mad scientist and the white-eyed wolf looked at Ice Dragon. At this moment, the domineering aura and responsibility that Ice Dragon exuded made them look at him in a different light. Qin Feiyong had also come back to his senses. His entire body was covered in cold sweat. The strength of the divine kingdom's god was simply unimaginable. With his current methods, he was no match for the divine kingdom's god. Now you understand the difference between you and the divine kingdom's god. Don't get too full of yourself. You have to continue working hard. I'll give you 1 day. After visiting your families, immediately return to the divine kingdom and complete your mission. Ice Dragon's voice sounded in the minds of Qin Feiyong and the other two. 1 day. Qin Feiyong frowned. How could 1 day be enough? He wanted to use this opportunity to spend more time with his family. Don't go too far. We've fought in the divine kingdom for so many years. Give us at least 1 year to reunite with our families. The mad scientist said telepathically. Do you have the final say or do I? Ice Dragon's tone was cold. But isn't a day too short? How about we discuss it for half a year? Madman thought. Ice Dragon pondered for a moment and said, 3 days. 3 days at most. If I don't see you back in 3 days, don't blame me for being ruthless. Damn you. Madman cursed in his heart. Let's go. Qin Feiyong sighed inwardly. He turned around and rushed to the front of the fire python, saying, let's go. All right. The fire python nodded and bowed to the ice dragon. Then it immediately let Qin Feiyong and the others away from this dangerous place. Even Qin Feiyong was no match for the ruler of the divine kingdom, which showed how terrifying his strength was. As a guardian, he controlled the rule power of the underworld king's hell. In the eyes of ordinary people, he was the ruler of this world. However, in the face of an existence like the ruler of the divine kingdom, the rule power of the underworld king's hell was meaningless. The second level of the divine sight. The fire python brought Qin Feiyong and the others to the sky above a mountain range. That's right. They didn't stay in the underworld king's hell, and went directly to the second level. Whoosh! Only when they arrived at the second level did Fire Dance and the others feel relieved. That damn ice dragon, he's going too far. Madman roared in anger. What's wrong? Everyone looked at him in confusion. Ice Dragon had saved Qin Feiyong before. Why was he scolding him now? Madman said helplessly. He secretly sent us a message saying that he would only give us 3 days. After 3 days, we must return to the divine kingdom. Only 3 days? The group was stunned. He said that he would only give us 1 day. We had to beg him for 3 days. Don't you think he's going too far? He even wants to control the time we spend with our families. Don't you think he's going too far? Madman was indignant. The group smiled bitterly. What could they do? Who asked Ice Dragon to be stronger than them? 3 days is indeed too short. Looks like we have to change the plan. Qin Feiyong sighed. Why don't we ignore him? White-eyed Wolf asked. He is a person who does what he says. If we ignore him, it's not only us who will suffer, but also our families. Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. Everyone fell silent. They finally came back and they only had 3 days. What could they do? Forget it. It's useless to be angry. Lin Yi waved her hand, looked at Qin Feiyong and asked Brother Feiyong, how strong is this divine kingdom's dominator? Even your 3,000 incarnations are not his opponent? When Qin Feiyong heard this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. If he knew how strong the divine kingdom's dominator was, he wouldn't challenge the other party this time. Sigh. It seems that we were too optimistic before. Madman sighed. White-eyed Wolf also nodded. When it came to the divine kingdom's dominator, they were all worried. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and said with a smile, although this challenge is a bit self-humiliating, it's a good thing for us. A good thing? Madman and White-eyed Wolf were taken aback. Yes. Because of this challenge, we have a preliminary understanding of the divine kingdom's dominator's strength. Furthermore, through this lesson, we've realized our own inadequacies. Furthermore, we should put away our contempt for the Scandinavian nation. Qin Feiyang said. That's true. If we don't know the strength of the Divine Kingdom's dominator in advance, we don't know how strong we will become in the end. When we face him, we will definitely suffer a great loss. Madman and White-Eyed Wolf nodded. Therefore, one must not be blinded by victory. One must always remain calm and deal with all unknown possibilities. But it's really surprising that this person also mastered the law of life and death. Li Feng frowned. He seemed to have said before that if one wants to become a true dominator, the first condition is to comprehend the law of life and death. Listening to what he said, is it possible that every dominator in the world has mastered the law of life and death? Lin Yi looked at them suspiciously. Maybe. Qin Feiyang nodded. Now, the law of life and death was no longer important. The important thing was that the Divine Kingdom's dominator's final means was simply unheard of. Wait! Suddenly Madman stretched out his hand, interrupted everyone's thoughts, and said in surprise, the Divine Kingdom's dominator seems to have mentioned a realm before. Is there a new realm above the dominator realm? A new realm. Qin Feiyang and others looked at each other, their eyes full of surprise. Why don't we ask Ice Dragon? His attitude towards us is still okay. As long as we humbly ask him for advice, he should not embarrass us. White-Eyed Wolf said cautiously. His attitude is still okay? Brother Wolf, are you talking in your sleep? If it's really possible, why would he only give us 3 days? Madman was speechless. That's another matter. He did save little Qin Zi before. White-Eyed Wolf waved his hand. Madman pursed his lips. This, Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and waved his hand. Let's not understand these things first, lest everyone bite off more than they can chew. The top priority is to integrate all the ultimate mysteries first. It makes sense. Madman nodded. If everyone knew that there might be a new realm above the dominator realm, it was inevitable that some people would be impetuous. Moreover, we don't need to inquire about this matter, because even if we humbly ask him for advice, he may not tell us. But Long Chan and Long Qin are different. They are Ice Dragon's biological children. If we let them inquire, the success rate will definitely be higher than us. Qin Feiyang said. Yes, we can let them go. Madman patted his head, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, how about I go to the dragons now and tell Long Chan and Long Qin about this matter first? Anyway, with the badge and the space-time tunnel, it would only take a short time to come and go. Wait, but at this time, Fire Python was stunned. He closed his eyes and carefully sensed for a while. Looking at Qin Feiyang and the other two, he said with a smile, you don't need to go, the siblings have already entered hell. They have already entered hell? The three were stunned. Yes. They also know that the dominator of the Divine Kingdom was brought to hell by Ice Dragon and Small Beast. This time they finally return to the Sky Cloud realm. They will definitely come to hell to visit Ice Dragon. The White-Eyed Wolf patted its head in realization. It bared its teeth at the Fire Python and said, bring them here. This is not good. Fire Python was a little scared, because the siblings were the children of Ice Dragon. He, as a guardian, was given by Ice Dragon and Small Beast. How could he dare to bring them to the second floor without the consent of the siblings? What are you afraid of? We are here. White-Eyed Wolf comforted. This, Fire Python looked at Qin Feiyang. It's okay. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Okay. Fire Python nodded. With a turn of its claws, a man and a woman appeared in the void next to it. Who else could it be but Long Qin and Long Chan? Suddenly being brought to the second floor by Fire Python, the siblings were a little stunned. And, when they saw Qin Feiyang and the others, the siblings were stunned again. Then, when they saw Fire Python with Qin Feiyang and the others, they suddenly realized. Long Qin looked at Qin Feiyang and the others and pursed his lips. I thought it was some reckless person who wanted to harm us. Turns out that you guys are behind this. With your identity and status, who dares to harm you? Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Long Chun asked, are you going back to the Great Qin? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, are you here to visit father? Otherwise, why would we come to the Nether King's hell? Long Chun smiled and looked at Fire Python. We were just looking for you. You are the guardian of the Nether King's hell. You must know where my father is now. I hope you can take us there. His tone was very gentle and his attitude was very polite. I know. Fire Python nodded and hesitated. But what? The siblings were shocked. Did something happen to their father? Don't be nervous. Ice Dragon is doing very well now. We have seen him before. But now, he is with the ruler of the Divine Kingdom. I am afraid it is not the time to see him. Lunatic said. You have already been there? Did you have a conflict with him? Longqin asked worriedly. Chapter 43-46. I didn't have any conflict with your father, but with the ruler of the Divine Kingdom. As the madman spoke, he turned to look at Qin Feiyang. His face was filled with ridicule. You're still gloating? Qin Feiyang said with a dark face. If you and the white-eyed wolf hadn't provoked me, would I have fought with him? What? You had a fight with the ruler of the Divine Kingdom? Longchan and Longqin were surprised. Is this for real? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded with a wry smile. What was the result? Longqin's face was full of curiosity. The result? Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. I was beaten to the point that I couldn't fight back. If it weren't for your father, I would have died in his hands. It can't be. The brother and sister looked at each other. With Qin Feiyang's current strength, he was beaten to the point that he couldn't fight back? You didn't activate the 3,000 incarnations? Longchun recovered and asked. Yes. Except for the Eye of Heaven, I used all my means, but the ruler of the Divine Kingdom used only one move to completely suppress me. Recalling the situation at that time, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. One move. Longchun was stunned when he heard this. What kind of means could suppress Qin Feiyang's 3,000 incarnations with just one move? This move seems to have evolved from the law of death, but we have never seen it before. So now we are all suspecting that there may be a new realm above the ruler realm. Originally, I wanted to find you and ask you to help me investigate it. After all, it's easier to talk to you in front of the Ice Dragon. But we didn't expect you to come to the Nether King's hell, so we asked Brother Hua to bring you here. Qin Feiyang said. So that's how it is. A new realm, the brother and sister murmured. They didn't expect to find a new world when they returned to the Sky Cloud realm. How about this? Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then looked at the Fire Python and said, Brother Fire, it's not appropriate for them to meet the Ice Dragon directly. After you send us off, go to the Nether King's hell alone and bring the Ice Dragon here. Let them reunite here. All right. The Fire Python nodded. The white-eyed wolf turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked, Then, should we go to the Ancient Realm first or the Great Qin Empire first? Since it's on the way, I'll definitely go to the Ancient Realm first. Madman said without hesitation. Li Feng looked at Qin Feiyang and said, I also want to return to the ancient world first, because it had been many years since he had gone back to the village to pay respects to the dead. I know you all want to go back. But now we only have 3 days. I have to make arrangements in advance. White-eyed wolf said in distress. 3 days? What do you mean? Longqin looked at the three of them suspiciously. Isn't it because of your father? He only gave us 3 days to be reunited with our families. White-eyed wolf snorted coldly. Longqin frowned and looked at Qin Feiyang and the others. Wait a moment, I'll go talk to him. This is really too unreasonable. Don't. If we annoy him later, we won't even have 3 days. White-eyed wolf hurriedly stopped him. But Longqin frowned. Madman shook his head and sighed. I know you mean well, but we really can't afford to offend your father. If we can't afford to offend him, can't we just avoid him? 3 days it is. Let's go to the ancient realm first and see Master. Qin Feiyang said. He had 2 masters. One was Yizhong of the ancient realm, and the other was the Deputy Alliance Master of the Sky Cloud realm. Although his current strength had far surpassed the 2 of them, he couldn't forget his roots. Looking at Old Man Yi is fake. Missing Shengguanqiu is the real deal. White-eyed wolf looked at Qin Feiyang playfully. Yes, this Shengguanqiu has a special liking for you. We haven't seen each other for so many years. Do you miss me? Madman slapped his head and couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang playfully. Shengguanqiu. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly and said helplessly, Can you guys stop joking? How did he make these 2 bad friends? It was completely an attitude of wanting to see the world in chaos. Suddenly, Fire Python said, "There's something I forgot to tell you." "What is it?" Qin Feiyang and the others were suspicious. Fire Python smiled. "There's a woman named Wang Yu. Not long after you guys returned to the Sky Cloud realm, she came to the Divine Ruins and asked me to help send her to the Ancient Realm." Wang Yuer. She went to the Ancient Realm? White-Eyed Wolf was stunned. "Yes." Fire Python nodded. "Little Qin Zi, why did she go to the Ancient Realm?" White-Eyed Wolf looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang and asked, "How would I know?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. He hadn't been in the Great Qin all these years. "Could it be that she hasn't given up on you? Is that why she went to find you?" White-Eyed Wolf muttered. Qin Feiyang's veins were bulging. He kicked him and said angrily, "I'm telling you, don't talk nonsense like this in the future." Back then, in order to enlighten Wang Yu, he had spent a lot of effort to appease her. He didn't want their relationship to become complicated because of some nonsense. You don't know how lucky you are." "If it were me," White-Eyed Wolf looked disdainfully at Qin Feiyang, but before he finished speaking, he felt a cold gaze. He quickly looked at Fire Dance and said with an embarrassed smile, "My dear wife, I'm just talking nonsense. Don't take it seriously." The corner of Fire Dance's mouth twitched slightly. She didn't say anything. Was there a need to be so afraid of her? Long Qin, who was standing beside Long Chan, looked at White-Eyed Wolf and Fire Dance with a trace of disappointment in his eyes. Qin Feiyang glanced at Long Qin, then looked at Fire Python and said with a smile, "Brother Fire, I'll have to trouble you again. But before that, let me give you a gift." "A gift?" Fire Python was stunned. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and ultimate profundity inheritances appeared one after another. Apart from the laws of light and darkness and the laws of life and death, there were ultimate profundities of all the laws, including the ordinary laws. This Fire Python was stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Don't say thank you. There's no need for that between brothers." Fire Python didn't even think of saying thank you because he didn't plan to accept it at all. After all, this gift was too precious. Rather than giving it to him, it was better to give it to someone with a better future. However, seeing that Qin Feiyang's attitude and tone were very firm, he knew that he definitely couldn't refuse. Therefore, he put it away with a clear conscience. As Qin Feiyang said, they were all brothers. If he still refused, it would seem too pretentious. Immediately, Fire Python turned to look at Long Chan and his sister and said respectfully, "Then I'll send them to the Ancient Realm first. Please wait for a moment." "Okay." Long Chan smiled slightly. Fire Python immediately left with Qin Feiyang and the others. Long Qin watched the group leave, then turned to Long Chan and asked, "Brother, why do you think father did this? Isn't he too overbearing?" Long Chan was slightly stunned and looked at his sister in front of him. This little sister's reaction seemed to be a bit too big. "Why are you looking at me?" Long Qin was suspicious. Long Chan asked seriously, "Little sister, tell me honestly, do you have feelings for the White-Eyed Wolf?" Long Qin didn't expect that Long Chan would suddenly ask this question. Caught off guard, she didn't know how to answer at all. She looked a little angry and her cheeks were a little red. Alas! Long Chan sighed secretly. Although Long Qin didn't answer, Long Qin's reaction was enough to explain everything. It was really an ill-fated relationship. There were so many people, why did she fall for the White-Eyed Wolf? The reason why father only gave them 3 days, I think it should be because he was worried that they would relax after spending too much time with their family, and at the same time it would delay their cultivation. Long Qin guessed. Even so, it's not necessary to give them only 3 days. Long Qin said. The strength of the ruler of the Divine Kingdom is beyond our imagination. As long as we make a wrong move, we will end up with a broken body. So at this time we can't relax at all. 3 days is indeed a short time, but we can do a lot of things. Long Chun smiled slightly. Ancient world. Northern region, land of death. It was as dark as ever, and the air was filled with a tragic aura. Back then, Qin Feiyang met the Fire Lotus here. It was also here that he had a dispute with Guosweki's family. Qin Feiyang turned his head to look at Frenzy and the others and said, I will only stay in the ancient world for 1 day. You have to arrange your time well. Okay. Frenzy nodded and said angrily, That damn ice dragon, when I become stronger, I will definitely press him to the ground and rub his skin. Remember to call me when the time comes. White-eyed wolf also said. Call you? Frenzy and Qin Feiyong looked at each other. Forget it. Who knows, I might be your father-in-law in the future. Then I will go directly to the divine land. Shall we meet here tomorrow morning? Li Feng looked at Qin Feiyong and the others and asked. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. Li Feng immediately opened a time passage and left. Let's go too. Frenzy also opened a time passage and pulled Zhuo Shaoxian in. Where are we going? Zhuo Shaoxian was puzzled. Frenzy said, Didn't I tell you before? There is an old man who has been helping me. He is one of the guardians of the ancient world. This time we must visit him. Then when are we going to pay respects to your adoptive father and your grandfather? Zhuo Shaoxian asked. Frenzy's grandfather was naturally the Grand Elder of the Ninth Heaven Palace. Although they were not related by blood, they had a deep relationship. We will go after visiting that old man. Along with the conversation, the two gradually disappeared. Lin Yi turned to look at Qin Feiyong and smiled. Brother Feiyong, I will also visit Master. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. Lin Yi's master was the guardian of the northern region. He used to be a great help to them. With Li Feng, Frenzy, Zhuo Shaoxian and Lin Yi leaving one after another, only Qin Feiyong, White-Eyed Wolf, Fire Dance and Mu Qing were left here. White-Eyed Wolf looked at Qin Feiyong with flickering eyes and suddenly bared his teeth. Sister Feng, I will take you around and meet some old friends. Little Qin Zi, although there are many girls waiting for you, remember to control yourself and meet at the Ninth Heaven Palace at night. Before leaving, White-Eyed Wolf left such a sentence, which almost made Qin Feiyong go berserk. Chapter 43-47. Mu Qing suddenly said, To be honest, you really don't look like a man. Huh? Qin Feiyong turned to look at Mu Qing. What did she mean? Why was she attacking him personally? You don't even care about the mermaid princess. Why are you so pretentious all the time? If it were me, and there were so many girls who liked me, and they were all so outstanding and beautiful, I would definitely take all of them. Tell me the truth, is there something wrong with you? I have a secret recipe passed down in my family. Maybe it can help you. Mu Qing looked at him curiously. Qin Feiyong's face suddenly darkened, and the veins on his forehead popped out. What kind of people did she know? She felt uncomfortable if she didn't insult him for a day. Seeing that the situation was not good, Mu Qing hurriedly took a few steps back and looked at Qin Feiyong warily. A gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. Wait, there will be a time when you beg me. Okay. I beg you. Help me take a look at the current location of Wang Yu or Shangguanqiu, Huiyan Master. Qin Feiyong felt rather helpless. All of them had the attitude of someone who could easily defeat him. And he had many acquaintances in the ancient world. For example, Supreme Cloud, Supreme Beast, various emperors and so on. There was also Yi Cheng and Yi Shuer. There were also his former subordinates Wang Daoyuan, Li Changhe, Lei Bing, Wang Qi, Pan Yunzhang and so on. But time was limited. He couldn't visit them one by one, and he only had one day. He didn't want to disturb them, so that when they were separated, it would only add to their sadness. Mu Qing smiled proudly and said, Hui must be in the Empyrean Palace. Not necessarily. It's not like you haven't seen this guy before. Although he was the deputy palace master of the Empyrean Palace before, did he manage anything? He was outside all day long. Qin Feiyong shook his head. This was a very irresponsible man. No. The past is the past. The present is the present. Don't forget, there is someone controlling him now. How dare he be presumptuous? Mu Qing smirked. Qin Feiyong was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. Indeed, now that Shangguan Fenglan was in charge, even if Hui had more courage, he wouldn't dare to act rashly. Mu Qing activated his all-seeing eye. Soon they found the whereabouts of these people. Yi Zhong and Shangguanqiu were both in the Divine Land. Hui was indeed in the Nine Heavens Palace. He did not run around. As for Wang Yu, at the moment he was also in the Divine Land. In that case we have to go to the Divine Land first. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and opened a time passage. After the dragons were destroyed, Yi Zhong took control of China. Of course, Yi Zhong did not have such thoughts. Right now, he only wanted to live in seclusion in the mountains and enjoy the rest of his life. However, he couldn't win against everyone's support. Because he himself was a person of virtue and prestige, and moreover, he was Qin Feiyang's master, everyone would naturally hold him in high regard. And he had no choice but to accept this heavy responsibility. Of course, Supremacy Beast and Supremacy Cloud could not escape either. After all, in today's ancient world except for Yi Zhong they had the highest status. Therefore, Yi Zhong had been holding on to them. Now, they were basically the ones who handled the affairs of the ancient world. Yi Zhong had become the most relaxed one. Sometimes, Supremacy Cloud and Supremacy Beast were a little indignant. If we had known that you would not care about the affairs, we would have been the overlords of the ancient world. In fact, Supremacy Cloud and Supremacy Beast used to be ambitious. They both wanted to unify the ancient world and become the only sovereign. But later, after being controlled by Qin Feiyang and experiencing countless hardships, they became indifferent to power and interests. It was also because of this that they did not compete with Yi Zhong in the beginning. Who would have thought that in the end they still couldn't escape? They did not have a day of leisure and were busy all day long. And with Yi Zhong's character, naturally, he would not separate the divine land from the four regions. Now, whether it was the Ninth Heaven Palace, the Treasure Pavilion, or the giants of the Eastern Tomb, the Western Desert, or the Southern Wilderness, they could freely enter and leave the divine land. Even the disciples of the major forces, as long as they were talented, had the opportunity to enter the divine land to further their studies. The ancient world today could be said to be thriving. Over the years, there had been almost no friction between the major forces. Everyone was united, friendly, supported each other, and helped each other, allowing this land to enter an unprecedented period of peace. Of course, no matter how many years had passed, everyone would not forget these few people. These people were Qin Feiyang, Frenzy, Qin Badian, and Lu Zhongyang. The ancient world could be what it was today all because of them. The divine land. The former divine dragon island had long been reduced to ashes. Now it was a mountain with lush vegetation and full of vitality. It was in the heart of the mountain. It was the former central area of the divine dragon island. In the mountain there was an inconspicuous small wooden building. The wooden building was old and mottled, but very neat and clean. Around it, there was a large vegetable garden and an orchard. An old man with white hair was standing in the orchard at this moment, wearing plain clothes, looking like an ordinary old man who was constantly trimming the withered branches and leaves. This person was Yi Zhong. Swish! Suddenly, a space-time passage appeared. Yi Zhong sensed the aura of the space-time law, and could not help but put down the work in his hand and turned his head to look suspiciously. This seems to be the power of the law? He stared at the space-time passage with a trace of shock in his eyes. But soon this shock was replaced by bewilderment, because two familiar auras came from the space-time passage. This aura. Yi Zhong's heart suddenly tensed up. Standing under the fruit tree, he stared at the space-time passage. Finally, two familiar figures walked out of the space-time passage. Feiyang. Muqing. Yi Zhong was stunned on the spot. How could these two people appear in front of him? He must be dreaming. He slowly raised his hand, grabbed his arm and suddenly twisted it hard. A sharp pain swept over. It hurts. It's not a dream. Master, what are you doing? Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang hurriedly ran up and helped to rub Yi Zhong's arm. Looking at the young man standing in front of him, looking at the young man's concern for him, Yi Zhong finally confirmed that this was not a dream. This kid really came back. Greetings, Elder Yi. Muqing also stepped forward and bowed in greeting. Good, good, good. Yi Zhong nodded repeatedly, looking at Muqing for a moment, and then looking at Qin Feiyang for a moment. Tears suddenly fell down. Master, why are you still crying? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Yi Zhong knocked Qin Feiyang's head fiercely and said angrily, I see that you brat came back alive, can't I be happy? Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, rubbing his forehead, and his face was full of gratitude. This was his concern for him. All these years, his master must have been worried about him in the ancient world. Even after so many years, this old man still treated him like a child and cared for him. It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. Come, let me see if you've changed after all these years. Yi Zhong's tears flowed down his face. These were indeed tears of joy. He pulled Qin Feiyong to the stone table next to him and waved to Mu Qing, saying, "Silly boy, what are you still standing there for? Come and sit down quickly." "Silly boy," Mu Qing murmured. In his heart there was also an inexplicable feeling. He had heard the words "silly boy" when his father was still alive. This feeling that he had not felt in a long time caused his eyes to heat up. However, he didn't want to lose too much face, so he turned his head, wiped away the tears that were about to fall, walked to the stone table with a smile, and sat opposite Qin Feiyong and Yi Zhong. Yi Zhong's trembling hands firmly grasped Qin Feiyong's hand, looked up and down, left and right, and carefully sized him up for a long time, nodded and smiled. "There's not much change, just a little more vicissitudes. Of course, I'm already so old now. I'm afraid that the younger generation of the ancient world has already called me an old antique." Qin Feiyong laughed. "Brat, in front of me, you still dare to say that you're old?" Yi Zhong patted Qin Feiyong's head and said with a smile, "But it's true in the eyes of many juniors now. You're already an ancestor-level person." Qin Feiyong rubbed his head. There was no other way. Although he didn't want to admit it, his age was indeed not young. Yi Zhong wiped away his disappointing tears and turned to look at Mu Qing. Mu Qing hurriedly said, "Don't look at me, I'm still very young, and I haven't experienced any vicissitudes." Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched, looked at Mu Qing strangely, and said, "Why do I suddenly find that your skin is thicker than that of the white-eyed wolf? This is the truth." Mu Qing pursed her lips. "Yes, it's the truth that you're thick-skinned." Qin Feiyong nodded. "What nonsense are you talking about? I said that I'm young, and that's the truth." Mu Qing glared at him. Looking at the two quarreling, Yi Zhong didn't say anything, and just looked at them silently, his face full of love. "Wait." Suddenly, he seemed to think of something, turned to Qin Feiyong and asked, "Why don't I see the lunatic and the white-eyed wolf?" "They won't. Don't be nervous. They're fine." Qin Feiyong hurriedly comforted him. In front of Yi Zhong he didn't dare to joke. If he said that something had happened to the lunatic and the white-eyed wolf, Yi Zhong would definitely be extremely sad. "They're fine?" Yi Zhong was slightly taken aback and frowned. "Then where are they? Are they still in the Sky Cloud realm?" "You even know about the Sky Cloud realm?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. Logically speaking, Yi Zhong should only know about the 4th level of the miracle. "Do you really think that this old man hasn't seen the world?" Yi Zhong rolled his eyes at him and said with a smile, "These years, at the end of the year, this old man will take Schwerer to the Great Qin to visit your parents." "Huh." Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing looked at each other. Every year at the end of the year Yi Zhong and Yi Schwerer would go to the Great Qin? This was too unexpected. Yi Zhong said with a smile, "You're this old man's disciple, and they're your family. We're a family, and a family must visit each other more often." "That's true." Qin Feiyong laughed dryly. Yi Zhong said, "Every time we go to the Great Qin, we need the fire python's help, so he told us a lot about you. So that's how it is." Qin Feiyong suddenly understood. Yi Zhong asked, "That lunatic and the white-eyed wolf, are they going directly to the Great Qin now?" "No. Time is tight, so they've all gone to visit their friends and family. We'll meet up at the Nine Heavens Palace tonight and have a good gathering." Qin Feiyong smiled. Yi Zhong nodded in realization and breathed a sigh of relief. He said with a smile, "This old man knew that you guys are all lucky people, so there definitely won't be any accidents. Wait a minute." But before he finished speaking, Yi Zhong suddenly frowned and looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyong, asking, "Time is tight, what do you mean?" Facing this question, Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing looked at each other, not knowing if they should tell Yi Zhong. Chapter 43-48. What's wrong? Yi Zhong looked at the two of them suspiciously. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while and said with a smile, "Actually, it's nothing. We just have a lot of things to deal with, so we can't stay in the ancient world for long." Yi Zhong asked, "Are you in a hurry to return to the Great Qin?" "Not really. Let's put it this way. This time we only have 3 days to come back. After 3 days we must return to the Sky Cloud realm," Qin Feiyong said. Originally, they had to return to the Divine Kingdom, but Yi Zhong definitely didn't know the situation in the Divine Kingdom, so it was better not to say it, lest he worry about them. 3 days? Yi Zhong was stunned. This was too hasty. What could they do in 3 days? Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Just think of it as us giving ourselves 3 days off. Yizhong nodded, but suddenly his face changed, and he asked, did something big happen in the Sky Cloud realm? This time you took the time to come back. Are you going to tell us something? No. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. Sure enough, some things couldn't be said. Otherwise, everyone would be worried about him. Then what's going on? Yizhong frowned. It wasn't easy to come back, but in the end they only had 3 days. 3 days, in the blink of an eye, it had passed. They didn't even have time to gather. You really don't have to worry. In fact, the situation in the Sky Cloud realm is a little unstable now, and we need someone to oversee it. Now our strength is already the strongest in the Sky Cloud realm, so the Sky Cloud realm can't leave us for the time being. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly and tried his best to comfort him. The strongest? Yizhong was stunned. Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded and pointed to Mu Qing next to him, saying, if you don't believe me, you can ask him. Yizhong looked at Mu Qing. Mu Qing glanced at Qin Feiyang and nodded. He didn't lie to you about this. Our current strength has already surpassed the older generation of the Sky Cloud realm. We are indeed the strongest. After receiving Mu Qing's reply, Yizhong finally believed Qin Feiyang's words. He nodded and said in a small voice, not bad. You're worthy of being the talent I value. Huh? Qin Feiyang laughed dryly and turned to look at the vegetable garden and orchard around him. In the vegetable garden, the green vegetables were like jade under the nourishment of the soul vein and crystal vein, releasing vitality and vitality. In the orchard, there were all kinds of fruit trees. Some fruit trees were blooming. Some fruit trees had already borne fruit. The fragrance of fruits could be smelled from afar. Why didn't I think of Yichang and Shuer? Qin Feiyang asked. Yizhong chuckled. They're different from me. I'm already an old man, but they're still young, so they're all busy outside. Qin Feiyang said, I guess their status in the ancient realm isn't low now. The predecessors plant trees, and the descendants enjoy the shade. This is all thanks to you. Yizhong waved his hand. If it weren't for Qin Feiyang and the madman leading many experts to destroy the Divine Dragon Island and destroy the dragons, how could Yichang and Yishui have today's achievements and status? It could be said that it was all thanks to them. I can't say. If they don't have the ability, no matter how good their relationship with me is, the world won't believe them. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. That's a must. Whether it's Yichang or Shuer, they're all outstanding. Yizhong laughed loudly, his brows full of pride. What about the Beast Sovereign and the Cloud Sovereign? Are they doing well now? Qin Feiyang asked. They're doing well. They're now in charge of the affairs of the Human Emperor Palace. Yizhong nodded. The Human Emperor Palace? Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing looked at each other, their faces full of suspicion. Which force was this? They had never heard of it before. Back then, when you left the ancient realm, I gathered the Beast Sovereign, the Cloud Sovereign, and the Divine Emperors to discuss the future development of the ancient realm. The Beast Sovereign suggested that since the dragons had been destroyed, the Dragon God Palace and the Dragon Slaying Palace shouldn't continue to exist. Because both the Dragon God Palace and the Dragon Slaying Palace are related to the dragons, so after our discussion, we unanimously decided to disband the Dragon Slaying Palace and the Dragon God Palace from then on. But we must continue to cultivate the talents of the ancient realm. Therefore, we built a new Human Emperor Palace. Now, the Human Emperor Palace is the only cultivation holy land in the Divine Land. Yizhong explained. I see. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing nodded in understanding. This old man is not talented, but I was pushed to the position of Lord of the Human Emperor Palace by everyone. The Beast Sovereign and the Cloud Sovereign are the Vice Lords of the Human Emperor Palace. As for the Divine Emperors and Divine Generals of the Dragon Slaying Palace, they are now holding important positions in the Human Emperor Palace. Yizhong smiled slightly. Qin Feiyang nodded and said with a smile, You are too modest. You being the Lord of the Human Emperor Palace is what everyone wants. Don't talk nonsense. If we are talking about what everyone wants, it's you and Lunatic. Because back then, you contributed the most in the battle against the dragons, but you have ambitions in your hearts. The ancient realm can't keep you. Yizhong shook his head and sighed. What ambitions can we have? We were forced to go to the Sky Cloud realm. Moreover, you know that I have no interest in power. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. If he was interested in power, he would have succeeded the throne when he was in the Great Qin. Of course. If he had succeeded the throne at that time, he definitely wouldn't have achieved what he had today. I know. But then again, although you have been away for so many years, the beings of the ancient realm haven't forgotten you. You can go to the Human Emperor Palace now. There are 2 statues on both sides of the Human Emperor Palace's gate. One is you and the other is Lunatic. Every disciple who enters the Human Emperor Palace for the first time has to bow to your statues. Yi Zhong said with a smile as he brewed tea. How could he not be proud to have such outstanding disciples? Is it that exaggerated? Qin Feiyang was stunned. There are even more exaggerated. Now many people run to your statues to pray when they encounter difficulties. Some ask for blessings, some ask for peace, and some even ask for children. In short, everyone has now worshipped you as gods. Yi Zhong said. Children. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. He could understand asking for blessings and peace, but asking for children. He wasn't the child giving Guanyin. This was a little ridiculous. It's not just the Human Emperor Palace. Basically, all the big and small cities in the ancient realm have your statues. So now, even a 3-year-old child can recognize you. Yi Zhong chuckled. Qin Feiyang said in surprise, so, we have to change our appearances when we walk in the ancient realm in the future? If you don't want to cause a stir, you do have to do this. Yi Zhong said. What's the difference between this and the Sky Cloud realm, Black Tortoise realm, Great Qin, and Forgotten Continent? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Isn't this a good thing? Because this way, you can get the power of faith as soon as possible. Mu Qing said telepathically. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Mu Qing's words made sense. The power of faith was obvious to all. Although the Great Qin, Forgotten Continent, Ancient Realm, Black Tortoise Realm, and Sky Cloud Realm couldn't compare to the Divine Kingdom, the power of faith that was born when they were added together couldn't be underestimated. What are you thinking about? Yi Zhong looked at him curiously. Nothing. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and took out exquisite tea jars, placing them on the stone table in front of him. This was the divine tea that he specially asked Fire Lotus to prepare for him last night. There were 2 caddies of each type of divine tea. There were also many Bodhi divine tea and Bodhi fruits. Because he knew that Yi Zhong liked to drink tea, he prepared these tea leaves as a gift to this old man. If it were someone else, he definitely wouldn't be willing. What's this? Yi Zhong was suspicious. You'll know when you open it. Qin Feiyang smiled. Puzzled, Yi Zhong opened a can of tea leaves. A rich tea aroma immediately greeted him. Every tea leaf inside was like a precious jade, sparkling and translucent. This is, although Yi Zhong hadn't seen divine tea before, he could tell that it was extraordinary at a glance. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, these are all divine teas, and there are even supreme-grade divine teas. There are more than 20 varieties, enough for you to drink for many years. Supreme-grade divine tea? Yi Zhong was stunned. And there were more than 20 varieties? How incredible! Back then, Qin Feiyang had gotten 20 varieties from Jijiu. In addition to the ancient dragon god tea and a few divine teas from Longchan, he indeed had more than 20 varieties now. Are you satisfied with this gift? Qin Feiyang chuckled. Yes. Very. I'm even more satisfied than giving this old man a few sovereign weapons. Yi Zhong smiled happily. For someone who loved tea, the value of a sovereign weapon couldn't compare to the divine tea. It was the same for someone who loved wine. For example, if a sovereign weapon and a jar of peerless divine wine were placed in front of Little Rabbit, she would definitely choose the divine wine. I'm glad you like it. Qin Feiyang chuckled, took a sip of the tea that Yi Zhong had brewed, and asked, is Wang Yuer in the divine land now? That girl is indeed in the divine land now, and she's in the human sovereign palace. She's the most outstanding disciple there. At the mention of Wang Yuer, Yi Zhong's face was full of praise. The most outstanding disciple? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. When she entered the human sovereign palace, she showed extraordinary talent. I thought she was a genius born in the ancient world. But one year when I took Shui to the Great Qin to visit your parents, I mentioned Wang Yuer by chance. In the end, your parents told me that Wang Yuer was from the Forgotten Continent. And she had a relationship with you before. Yi Zhong shook his head with a smile. Mu Qing looked at Qin Feiyong mockingly and said, "Look, even you know what happened between you and Wang Yuer." Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly and looked at Yi Zhong, saying, "Master, I've made it clear to her that she's my younger sister from now on. So don't mention this to outsiders in the future, lest it causes unnecessary misunderstandings." Do you think I'm stupid? I definitely won't talk nonsense. But to be honest, this little girl is not only beautiful, but also talented. Now she's recognized as a goddess in the human sovereign palace. I don't know how many young talents are pursuing her. But why don't you like her? Yi Zhong was very puzzled. Chapter 43-49. She's such an outstanding woman. There's no man in the world who wouldn't like her. In the past, if it weren't for various reasons, we might have already been together. So, I can only say that we're not fated to be together. Moreover, I don't want to be a man who has multiple wives. Qin Feiyong shook his head. It's indeed good to be responsible for your relationship. But remember, even if you don't like her, you can't hurt the woman who likes you. Yi Zhong reminded. I know that. Whether it's Yu Eri or Shangguan Qiu, I'll do my best to reduce the harm to them, Qin Feiyong said. That's good. Yi Zhong smiled and asked, only 3 days. How many days do you plan to stay in the ancient world? Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said apologetically, I'm preparing to return to the Great Qin Empire tomorrow morning. All right. I'm already very satisfied that you can come to visit me now. Go back and spend more time with your family. After all, it hasn't been easy for them to raise you all these years. Yi Zhong smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyong nodded. Yi Zhong smiled and said, if you're going to the human emperor's palace to visit Wang Yuer, you should also visit your younger siblings while you're at it. What? Younger siblings? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Yes. Your younger siblings are also in the human emperor's palace now. Yi Zhong nodded. This? Qin Feiyong was startled. He asked suspiciously, which younger brothers and sisters? How many younger siblings can you have? It's just Qin Li, Qin Xian, Qin Yun, Qin Wan, Qin Ji, Qin Yi and Qin Yi. Yi Zhong was speechless. Huh? Qin Feiyong said in shock. They've already come to the ancient world. Yes. The first time I went to Great Qin, they insisted on coming to the ancient world to experience it, but your parents did not allow it, saying that they were too young. Later on, when I went the second time, I didn't plan to bring them, but in the end, they all secretly followed me. When I entered the divine ruins and found them, they were all begging for mercy. In the end, I had no choice but to bring them with me to the ancient world. Yi Zhong smiled bitterly. Do my parents know? Qin Feiyong asked. Of course. At first, your parents objected. On one hand, it was because they were too young. On the other hand, they didn't want them to take risks outside. Wouldn't it be better to live a normal life? In the end, seeing that I really couldn't control the hearts of these little fellows, I simply let them go and let them go. Yi Zhong said. Yeah. How nice would it be to live a normal life? These fellows don't know how lucky they are. Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. He dreamed of living such a life, but in his life, there were too many things that were beyond his control. Actually, it's not their fault. After all, they are all young people. They definitely want to go out and explore. Besides, with such an outstanding brother like you, how could they be willing to be ordinary? Yi Zhong shook his head and smiled. So it's still my fault? Qin Feiyong was stunned. You can say that. Yi Zhong looked at him mockingly. Qin Feiyong had a helpless look and asked, what about Qin Haotian? Don't tell me he also came to the ancient world? He wants to, but as the current emperor of the Great Qin dynasty, he can't leave at all. Yi Zhong shook his head. That's good. Qin Feiyong breathed a sigh of relief. He had high hopes for this younger brother of his. Moreover, even if he didn't go out to explore, he was confident that Qin Haotian's cultivation would not lose to anyone. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, then these little guys have caused you a lot of trouble all these years. They really haven't. On the contrary, these little guys are very worrisome. And until now, no one knows that you are their brother. In other words, they didn't rely on any relationship with you. The achievements and status they have today are all earned by their own efforts. Yi Zhong hurriedly waved his hand. What achievements and status can they have? Qin Feiyong pursed his lips. You're underestimating them. Let me tell you, their bloodline power has already returned to their ancestors, and they are not arrogant or rash. All of them are very desperate because they don't want to lose face for you. Yi Zhong shook his head. Bloodline reversion? You mean they already have the bloodline power of the purple gold divine dragon? Qin Feiyong was surprised. Yes. Yi Zhong nodded and said with a smile, it's unexpected. It is indeed unexpected. Qin Feiyong whispered. In the past, he had always thought that only Qin Haoyan could return to his bloodline, and Qin Li and the others should not have the potential. He did not expect that all of them would succeed. Wait a minute. All of them succeeded. This did not seem to make sense. Back then, when he was in the Great Qin, he had many brothers and sisters, but other than him, there was not a single person who had returned to their bloodline. Why were all his brothers and sisters returning to their bloodline now? Mu Qing said with a voice transmission. Could it be related to Jitianyue? Jitianyue. Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered as he looked at Yi Zhong and asked, when did their bloodline return to their ancestors? Yi Zhong thought for a moment and said, it seems to have been these years. They transformed into purple gold divine dragons one after another. These years. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing looked at each other. It seemed that it really had something to do with Jitianyue. Then have they returned to the Great Qin all these years? Qin Feiyong asked again. Definitely. Every 1 or 2 years, they will go back to visit their families at the end of the year. Yi Zhong nodded. Then, have you seen this person? Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and Ji Tianyue's image appeared. Yi Zhong looked up and immediately had a look of surprise on his face. He asked, you know her? Looking at Yi Zhong's reaction, Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing understood. The bloodline return of these brothers and sisters must be due to Ji Tianyue. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. How do you know her? Yi Zhong looked at the two of them suspiciously. Qin Feiyong asked, don't you know her identity? Identity? What identity? The last time I went to the Great Qin, I was very puzzled when I saw her, because I've never seen her before. At that time I even asked your parents, but even they didn't know this person's identity. Even your grandfather and great-grandfather didn't know. Yi Zhong shook his head. In that case, she didn't reveal her identity to father and the others. Qin Feiyong muttered. I think she didn't want to cause any sensation. Mu Qing guessed. Qin Feiyong said, although she didn't reveal her identity, she definitely can't cut off the bloodline connection with the Qin clan. You know this? Your great-grandfather told me about this last time. He said that every time he saw this woman, he could feel a kinship that was thicker than water. Yi Zhong said, of course, because great-grandpa is her biological grandson. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. What? Emperor Hong is her grandson? Yi Zhong suddenly stood up, his face full of shock. Yes. Over the years in the Sky Cloud realm, I've also found out the origin of the Qin clan. The origin of the Qin clan is in the Sky Cloud realm, and the ancestor of the Qin clan is the leader of the human race in the Sky Cloud realm, the human emperor, but he has been dead for many years. The woman you're talking about is called Ji Tianyue, and she is the wife of the human emperor. My ancestor, Qin Batian, is the son of her and the human emperor. So, as the descendant of my ancestor, Emperor Hong is naturally the grandson of Ji Tianyue and the human emperor. Qin Feiyong explained. So that's how it is. I didn't expect that the Qin clan actually originated from the Sky Cloud realm. And the ancestor of the Qin clan is too powerful. He is the leader of the human race. Yi Zhong was shocked. First, I was also quite surprised. To tell you the truth, Ji Tianyue's true form is the purple gold divine dragon. So, our purple gold dragon blood is inherited from her. Qin Feiyong smiled. The purple gold divine dragon. Yi Zhong was shocked again. The legendary purple gold divine dragon actually existed in the world. And it was once right in front of him. What a blind man. How could he not recognize such a great figure? Qin Feiyong sighed. These things are quite complicated. I don't think 3 days and 3 nights will be enough. Anyway, you just need to know her identity. Yizhong nodded and slowly returned to the stone bench to digest the shocking news. All right. I'll go see Shangguanqiu, Wang Yuer and those little guys first. We'll go to the Ninth Heaven Palace in the evening and join the others. You can call Yichang Shuer Supreme Beast and Supreme Cloud. Qin Feiyang got up and smiled. All right. If you go to the Human Emperor Palace today, you can see a wonderful battle, Yizhong said. A battle? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. Every year, the Human Emperor Palace will hold a competition between disciples, and the rewards will be generous. Wang Yuer won't necessarily participate, because her cultivation base is already at the half-step imperishable level. She's already far above the other disciples, but your siblings will definitely participate. Yizhong nodded. She has reached the half-step eternal realm? As soon as he said that, Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing were both stunned. Yes. And it seems that she has comprehended a log. Although she is now a disciple of the Human Emperor Palace, her status in the Human Emperor Palace is comparable to the ordinary elders. Yizhong laughed. Not bad. Mu Qing nodded. Wang Yuer was different from them. They were adventuring in the outside world and had obtained many fortunes and opportunities. Moreover, they had a time array that lasted 5,000 years. But Wang Yuer had always been in the Great Qin. Even if she entered the ancient realm now, the resources of the ancient realm were definitely not comparable to those of the Sky Cloud realm and the Black Tortoise realm. To be able to reach the half-step eternal realm in these years was already very impressive. Suddenly, Mu Qing turned to look at Qin Feiyang and asked, she seems to have opened the gate of potential, right? Even if she hasn't opened it completely. Moreover, to be able to comprehend a law at the half-step eternal realm, even you can't compare to this kind of comprehension. Qin Feiyang laughed. Tsk Mu Qing's face was full of disdain. What was the use of having good comprehension? Wasn't he stronger than this woman now? Something came up at the last minute, today and tomorrow 2 chapters guaranteed. Chapter 4350. After bidding farewell to Yizhong, Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing opened the space-time tunnel and left. Holy Dragon City. This was one of the largest cities in the northern region of the Divine Land. It was also the location of the Treasure Pavilion. Back then, when Shangguanqiu had just entered the Divine Land, Venerable Cloud had arranged for him to stay in Holy Dragon City. However, at that time Venerable Cloud had wanted to use Shangguanqiu to threaten Qin Feiyang. Venerable Cloud was the Treasure Pavilion's chief pavilion master. She had used the Treasure Pavilion's resources to secretly assist the Dragon Slayer Palace. Could be said that, without the Treasure Pavilion's resources, the Dragon Slayer Palace would not have been able to develop so quickly. After all these years, Holy Dragon City was larger and more prosperous than before. In the center of the city, there was a magnificent building that stood tall and majestic. Above the gate, the words Treasure Pavilion were written with iron and silver, exuding a strong aura. The Treasure Pavilion was still the largest trading place in the ancient world. It was located in all the major cities. As long as you had enough wealth, there was nothing you could not buy here. And now, after Venerable Cloud became the Vice Palace Master of the Human Emperor Palace, the Treasure Pavilion's status in the ancient world was even higher now. Of course, now the Treasure Pavilion had officially become a part of the Human Emperor Palace. And now, the person in charge of the Treasure Pavilion was Shangguanqiu. At this moment, 2 ordinary-looking young men entered Holy Dragon City. They were Qin Feiyang. They walked on the streets, looking at the passers-by in the shops on both sides of the street with a faint smile on their faces. Compared to the cruel and bloody Holy Dragon City of the past, it was peaceful now. They could even see some well-dressed rich people taking the initiative to help some old grandpas and grandmas who could not move easily. This would not have been seen in the past, because in the past they had often seen rich people bullying people and committing crimes, as well as dragons bullying the common people. Do you feel relieved? Mu Qing smiled. Yes. They did not let down the peace we exchanged for with our lives back then. Qin Feiyang nodded. The peace in the ancient world could be said to be exchanged for with their lives. Although they had won the battle back then, the Dragon Slayer Palace had also suffered a lot of casualties. I remember that your ancestor had a disciple in the ancient realm? Mu Qing transmitted her voice. Disciple? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, really? I'm not talking about Qin Badian. I'm talking about Lu Zhongyang. This disciple seems to be called something like Li. For a moment, Mu Qing couldn't remember this person's name either. Lu Zhongyang's disciple, surnamed Li. Qin Feiyong frowned. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he said, I think his name is Li Xiaofei. He finally remembered. That was right. Lu Zhongyang indeed had such a disciple. Back then, he was the young lord of the southern region of the dragon-slaying palace. That time, Qin Feiyong was the young lord of the north. He had quite an impression of Li Xiaofei back then, because this guy was like a scammer always talking about his sixth sense. Yes, that's him. Mu Qing nodded. If you didn't mention him now, I really would have forgotten about him. After the battle with the dragons, I didn't have much interaction with him. Moreover, my ancestor didn't take him to the Sky Cloud realm. I think he might have stayed in the ancient realm. Qin Feiyong muttered. Mu Qing said, if he really stayed in the ancient realm, then his status and strength in the ancient realm must be extraordinary now. After all, he was Lu Zhongyang's disciple. His achievements must be far beyond others. If he and we are really fated, I think we will definitely meet in the future. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. During the conversation, the two came to the central area of the city. The location of the treasure pavilion didn't change much. The two had already seen it from afar. Just as they were about to walk over, Qin Feiyong suddenly looked ahead. Not far ahead there was a large square. This was the central square of the Holy Dragon City. On the square, there were two divine statues standing tall and upright. Damn! Mu Qing raised her head and looked at the square. Her expression suddenly froze. The two statues in the center of the square were exactly the same as Qin Feiyong and the madman. Moreover, in front of the statues, there were indeed many people kneeling and praying at this moment. Sure enough, it was as Yi Zhong said. The creatures of the ancient realm were now worshipping the two like gods. Anything else is fine, as long as it's not praying for children. Qin Feiyong smiled bitterly. Mu Qing rolled her eyes. Others didn't even have this kind of treatment. Then she pondered for a while and asked, but then again, if the madman statue is with you, will it affect the birth of your faith power? This. Qin Feiyong hesitated. I'm afraid I have to ask the mysterious young man to know, because he didn't know much about the faith power. If it will affect it, take it down as soon as possible. Mu Qing smiled mischievously. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed. He turned his head and looked around. His gaze suddenly looked at a certain place on the left side of the square, as if he had seen something unbelievable. His face was full of astonishment. What now? Mu Qing looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong pointed at a restaurant and asked, look, isn't that the Heaven Immortal Tower? Mu Qing looked up and said angrily, it's not like you can't read. If those three words aren't Heaven Immortal Tower, then what are they? It's really the Heaven Immortal Tower. That can't be right. Isn't the Heaven Immortal Tower in the Eastern Tomb? Qin Feiyong scratched his head. He had a deep impression of the Heaven Immortal Tower, because the Tower Master of the Heaven Immortal Tower, Miss Heaven Immortal, was also his old friend. In the past she had helped him. There was also the Heaven Immortal Deity, and the Heaven Immortal drunk wine that came from the Heaven Immortal Tower. Back then, Hua Yi and the five-clawed golden dragon were extremely obsessed with the Heaven Immortal drunk wine. They remembered that before they went to the Nether King's Hell, they even specially borrowed the space-time gate from Qin Feiyong, and went to the Heaven Immortal Tower in the Eastern Tomb to empty the entire wine cellar. But they didn't expect that they would actually see the Heaven Immortal Tower in the Holy Dragon City now. Could it be that the name was just the same? Brother. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong grabbed a young man passing by. This person was wearing luxurious clothes and had an imposing appearance. With one look, one could tell that he was a descendant of a big family. The young man in luxurious clothes was stunned. He stopped and looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Qin Feiyong hurriedly let go of the young man and said with a smile, don't misunderstand. I just want to ask you something. The young man in luxurious clothes suddenly understood. So you want to ask about something? I thought that you saw that I was too handsome and were jealous of my peerless appearance. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing were stunned. This was too shameless. He was indeed a little handsome, but not to the extent that they were jealous of him. Speak, what do you want to know? The young man in luxurious clothes asked, but before Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing could reply, he continued, why don't you guys invite me to the Heaven Immortal Tower for a few drinks? We can chat while drinking? The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched. This brat really had an easygoing personality. Wait. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong sized up the young man in luxurious clothes and asked suspiciously, why do I feel that you look a little familiar? Familiar? The young man in luxurious clothes was stunned. He also carefully sized up Qin Feiyong for a moment before shaking his head and saying, but I don't know you guys. Hey, don't try to get close to me just because I'm so handsome. Let me tell you guys, I'm not interested in men. Qin Feiyong's face darkened. The word handsome didn't leave his mouth. How narcissistic was he? However, this person's facial features really gave him an inexplicable sense of familiarity. But he just couldn't remember. Moreover, this person only had the cultivation of the war god. The cultivation of the war god was obviously a junior of the later generation. How could a junior of the later generation find him familiar? So strange. What do you want to ask? The young man in luxurious clothes urged. Qin Feiyong temporarily put aside the doubts in his heart and looked at the young man in luxurious clothes with a smile. I want to ask you about the situation of the Heaven Immortal Tower. Is this Heaven Immortal Tower related to the Heaven Immortal Tower in the East Tomb? The young man in luxurious clothes was stunned. When he came back to his senses, he looked at Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing strangely. What? The two of them were puzzled. Are you guys from the Divine Prefecture? No, are you guys from the ancient world? You don't even know about the Heaven Immortal Tower? The young man in luxurious clothes had a look of disdain. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing were stunned once again. As the owner of the strongest war soul and an existence that shook the Sky Cloud realm and the Divine Kingdom, he was actually looked down on by a little brat at this moment. It was really a slap in the face. The young man in luxurious clothes said, the Heaven Immortal Tower in the East Tomb and here are both from the same Heaven Immortal Tower. The same one? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Yes, not only in the Holy Dragon City, but in the entire ancient world, there are branches of the Heaven Immortal Tower in all the big and small cities. In the past, the headquarters of the Heaven Immortal Tower was indeed in the East Tomb. But now, Heaven Immortal has moved the headquarters to the Holy Dragon City. The young man in luxurious clothes said. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing looked at each other. The Heaven Immortal Tower had now spread throughout the entire ancient world? This development was a little too fast. Wait. Qin Feiyong was suddenly stunned and asked, Heaven Immortal? What do you mean? The Tower Master of the Heaven Immortal Tower is your aunt? Did I say that? I don't think so. You guys heard wrong. The young man in luxurious clothes tried his best to deny it as if he was a little guilty. Then he hurriedly said, I still have something to do. Goodbye. After saying that, he quickly left. What does this brat mean? Mu Qing looked at the young man's back view. Isn't it obvious? He must be hiding something. Qin Feiyong looked at the young man's back view and said with a smile, what an interesting little fellow. Mu Qing suddenly said, you don't say. I also feel that he is a little familiar. Is that so? It seems that he might be the descendant of one of our old friends. Qin Feiyong smiled. Heaven Immortal. Mu Qing pondered for a while and asked, he can't be Miss Heaven Immortal's son, right? Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched. He looked at Mu Qing speechlessly and turned to walk toward the treasure pavilion. Why are you looking at me like that? Mu Qing chased after him. Think about it yourself. Qin Feiyong said without turning his head. Mu Qing thought carefully and suddenly couldn't help but want to slap herself. This little fellow even called Miss Heaven Immortal his aunt. How could he be Miss Heaven Immortal's son? Her reputation was ruined at this moment. Greetings, young masters. When Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing entered the treasure pavilion, a dignified and beautiful woman immediately came up to them with a standard smile on her face. Qin Feiyong said with a smile, we would like to see an old friend. Please inform him. An old friend? The woman was stunned and asked suspiciously, may I know who the old friend is? Shengguanqiu. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. What? You two are old friends of the chief pavilion master? The woman was stunned on the spot. She couldn't believe it. Chapter 43:51. Qin Feiyong did not lower his voice when he said this. Many people in the surroundings heard this, and they immediately turned their heads to look at Qin Feiyong and Qin Yu. Their expressions were extremely stunned. Old friends of the chief pavilion master? What a joke. Whether it was their looks or their clothes, they did not look like rich people. Due to the fact that Qin Feiyong and Qin Yu had changed their appearances and were wearing plain clothes, their temperaments were also very ordinary. Thus they looked very ordinary. At the same time, Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing were also stunned. Shang Guanqiu was the chief pavilion master of the treasure pavilion? That was not right. Was the chief pavilion master not Supreme Cloud? Had Supreme Cloud abdicated his position? Brother, are you two joking? Don't think too much. I'm not hurting your pride. How could you two know the chief pavilion master of the treasure pavilion with your status? Don't tell me this is some cheap trick to get close to the chief pavilion master. A young man spoke. He was also dressed in fine clothes and had an extraordinary aura. Get close to the chief pavilion master? Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing were stunned. What did he mean? How dare you deny it? Are you trying to use this method to get close to the chief pavilion master and see her peerless beauty? Let me tell you, your acting is too clumsy. I can see it at a glance. The young man shook his head, his face full of disdain. That's right. The chief pavilion master is young and capable. Most importantly, she's very beautiful. She's the goddess of all men. Dwarfs and paupers like you can forget about touching our goddess. Yes, we won't let you have your way. A group of young men in their 20s spontaneously formed a human wall in front of Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing's mouths twitched. Dwarfs and paupers? Could this word be used on them? Public morals were degenerating day by day. Both of you, the chief pavilion master is busy and has no time to meet you. Please leave. The woman who received Qin Feiyong and Zhao Fu thought that Qin Feiyong and Zhao Fu were here to admire their goddess, so she asked them to leave. However, her attitude was still quite amiable. Mu Qing said helplessly, "We are really Shangguanqiu's old friends. If you don't believe me, you can ask her to come out and see us." It was all Qin Feiyong's fault. Why did he have to change his appearance? Otherwise, why would such a joke happen? The woman held back her patience and said with a smile, "Chief Pavilion Master really doesn't have time, please." Mu Qing was about to say something. However, the woman's patience seemed to have run out. She looked at the two guards at the door and said with a smile, "Send these two young masters out." Yes. Two guards stepped forward and dragged Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing out of the room. "Brother, we are really not here to get close to Shangguanqiu." Mu Qing tried his best to explain. The two guards pushed the two of them onto the street and shook their heads. "Little brother, we have seen a lot of tricks like this over the years. You are basically here to win the chief pavilion master's heart, but it's useless because our chief pavilion master already has someone in her heart." Someone in her heart? Mu Qing was slightly stunned. He glanced at Qin Feiyong and asked curiously, "Who is it? Who else could it be?" "It's the famous Qin Feiyong, Lord Qin. In this world, other than Lord Qin, I don't think anyone is worthy of the chief pavilion master." The two guards said proudly, "So it's Lord Qin. No wonder." Mu Qing nodded in realization. "So you'd better give up. Hurry up and leave. Don't force us to use force or you will suffer." The two guards waved their hands and turned back to the two sides of the door, scanning everyone entering and leaving the treasure hall. "Lord Qin, I didn't expect you to be so charming. After so many years, she still hasn't given up." Mu Qing looked at Qin Feiyong mockingly. Qin Feiyong's face darkened, and he glared at him. He looked up at the treasure hall and couldn't help but hesitate. Should he go see Shangguanqiu? She has waited for you for so many years. Don't tell me you want to turn around and leave now? Have you forgotten what old Master Yi said? A man must never hurt a woman who loves him. If you turn around and leave now, Shangguanqiu will be heartbroken when she finds out. Mu Qing's face was full of mischief. Aren't you annoying? Hurry up and go to the Black Tortoise world. When we return to the Great Qin, I will call you out. Qin Feiyong said with a dark face. Damn. You are burning the bridge after crossing the river. No, I must stay outside and watch the show today. Mu Qing snorted coldly. Qin Feiyong looked helpless. Don't dawdle. Hurry up and activate the concealment technique and sneak in, Mu Qing urged. Qin Feiyong glanced at him and said, Why don't you go to the Heaven Immortal Tower to drink? I will treat you. What good wine can the Heaven Immortal Tower have? Besides, do I need you to treat me? Mu Qing's face was full of disdain, and he said with a sneaky smile, You want to send me away? No way. Hurry up, we still have to go to the Human Emperor Palace later. Don't miss the performance of your brothers and sisters. Qin Feiyong felt helpless. He could only activate the concealment technique and quietly enter the treasure hall with Mu Qing. Huh. The guard standing at the door was stunned when he saw the two of them suddenly disappear. Then he couldn't help but mutter, They actually have a spatial divine item. It seems that they are not ordinary people. They thought that the two of them had gone to a spatial divine item. And spatial divine items were quite valuable in the ancient world. Treasure hall. On the top floor. There were two guards at the entrance of the stairs, and their cultivation had reached the Nine Heavens realm. The Nine Heavens realm was considered a first-class expert in the ancient world. After passing through the entrance of the stairs, they entered a corridor. There were 4 doors on both sides of the corridor. The 4 doors were all closed. At the end of the corridor there was another door. The door was half open, and they could clearly sense an aura from inside. The owner of the aura was Shangguanqiu. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing quietly walked to the door and looked inside. They saw that there was a very big study inside. There was a bookshelf on the right wall, and all kinds of books were neatly placed on it. In front of the bookshelf, there was a desk made of Fibigenon wood. The ink, paper and books on the desk were also neatly placed. At this moment, a woman in a long white dress was sitting in front of the desk, looking down at an account book seriously. Opposite the desk, there was an exquisite tea table. On the left side of the tea table there was a tea set, and on the right side there was a palm-sized incense burner. A faint fragrance floated out from the incense burner. The woman looked at the account book meticulously, making the study very quiet. She's getting more and more beautiful. Mu Qing looked at the woman's cheeks and could not help but feel warm in his heart. He sent a voice transmission, Qin Feiyong, are you really not tempted? If you are not tempted, then I'll start to take action. Qin Feiyong turned his head and looked at Mu Qing in a daze. What? Do you have a problem with that? Mu Qing frowned. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him and said to himself, I don't have time to joke with you now. Who's joking with you? Mu Qing muttered. When he was in the ancient world, he basically cultivated in the Black Tortoise realm, so he was quite unfamiliar with Shangguanqiu. Now that he looked at her from such a close distance, she was really beautiful. What was wrong with Qin Feiyong? How could he refuse such a beautiful and capable woman? Let's go in. Qin Feiyong sent a voice transmission. The two of them passed through the half-open door and quietly entered the study. Why are you sneaking around? What are you doing? Mu Qing raised his eyebrows. She's working. Why are you disturbing her? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and then wandered around the study. Shangguanqiu did not notice the two of them at all. Time passed quietly. An hour was about to pass. Mu Qing had lost his patience. At this moment, Shangguanqiu finally raised his head and frowned. He looked at the door and said, Come in. Tada! Along with the sound of footsteps, a guard came in and bowed. Cabinet Master, what can I do for you? There are some mistakes in the account book of the Serpent City Treasure Pavilion. Take the account book and check it with the supervisor over there. If it's confirmed that they have embezzled it, kill them first and report later, Shangguanqiu said. His tone was slightly cold and had a murderous aura. Yes. The guard nodded and took the account book with a bow. Then he turned and left quickly. Kill them first and report later. Mu Qing couldn't help but shiver when he heard this. Is this woman so ruthless? Do you still want to take action now? Qin Feiyong smiled secretly. Yes. This is the kind of character I like. Mu Qing nodded reluctantly. Take action, my ass. He had been looking for a gentle and virtuous woman, such as the Mermaid Princess in Fire Lotus. This Shangguanqiu was not to his taste. Qin Feiyong looked at him speechlessly and said with a smile, Chief Cabinet Master, I didn't expect it to be so difficult to even see you now. As soon as he said this, Shang Guanqiu, who was about to check an account book, immediately looked up at the side of the tea table. His eyes were full of surprise, because the voice came from the side of the tea table. I don't know if you still recognize your old friend after so many years. Qin Feiyang laughed. With a shift of his mind, the invisibility spell disappeared. Shang Guanqiu immediately saw two strange men sitting in front of the tea table. One of them was looking at her with a smile, while the other was leaning against the chair and swinging his feet leisurely. Who are you? When did you come in? Shang Guanqiu immediately stood up, her eyes full of vigilance. Obviously, these two men had entered the study long ago, but she didn't notice. We've been here for a long time. We didn't want to disturb you because you were busy. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. Who are you? Why are you sneaking around here? What do you want? A cold light flashed in Shang Guanqiu's eyes, and his body emitted a trace of terrifying aura. Hey! Mu Qing looked up and sized up Shang Guanqiu. This woman's cultivation had reached the inextinguishable realm. Inextinguishable realm? Not bad. It seems that you've been working hard on your cultivation these years while managing the treasure pavilion. Qin Feiyang laughed. The more Shang Guanqiu looked at them, the more confused she became. Why did she feel that these two strange men seemed to know her very well? Chapter 43-52. Mu Qing turned to look at Qin Feiyang and said jokingly, "It seems that if we don't show our identities today, she won't recognize us." Qin Feiyang also laughed. Who the hell are you? Shang Guanqiu became more and more confused. If they wanted to harm her, they had a lot of opportunities when she was checking the account book, but they didn't do anything. Moreover, judging from their expressions, they didn't seem to have any ill intentions. Qin Feiyang took out two face-restoring elixirs. Shang Guanqiu's pupil shrank when she saw the two face-restoring elixirs. Because these two face-restoring elixirs had 9 dragon-shaped elixirs. There were no elixirs of this level in the ancient realm. Could it be that they weren't from the ancient realm? Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing looked at each other and took the face-restoring elixirs. Their faces and figures began to change. As their appearances changed, a sense of familiarity appeared bit by bit. At last, 2 familiar faces appeared in front of her. Immediately. Shang Guanqiu was stunned and her eyes were full of disbelief. Was this a dream? They had gone to the Sky Cloud realm a long time ago. How could they suddenly appear in front of her? Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing smiled but didn't say anything. After a long time, Shang Guanqiu came back to her senses and looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing again. She looked very carefully and seriously, as if she was afraid to miss a small detail. After checking again and again, she was finally sure that this was not a dream. This man had returned from the Sky Cloud realm. In her heart, the longing that had been buried for many years gushed out uncontrollably like a volcanic eruption. Her eyes were also slowly filled with a layer of mist. I'd better be sensible and wait outside, Mu Qing muttered, turned around and quietly walked out of the study and gently closed the door. There were no guards in the corridor outside. The guards were guarding the stairs downstairs. As long as she didn't release her aura or make any noise, no one would notice Mu Qing. Is it really you? In the study, Qin Feiyang and Shang Guanqiu stood facing each other. Shang Guanqiu murmured. Although she wanted to control herself, her feet would not listen to her. Step by step she walked toward Qin Feiyang. It's me. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. He felt more apologetic towards Shang Guanqiu. Shang Guanqiu was an outstanding and kind woman. If not for the fact that he already had a woman he loved in his heart, he might have really gotten together with Shang Guanqiu. But now there was no room for other women in his heart. Therefore, in the face of this woman who had always been deeply in love with him, he could only apologize. Maybe this was fate. They were fated but not fated to be together. But, although they couldn't become lovers, the woman in front of him would always be the most important person in his life. He could take care of her and protect her like his own sister. If anyone wanted to bully her, he would be the first to disagree. Seeing Qin Feiyang nodding and looking at that familiar smile, Shang Guanqiu's inner emotions completely collapsed. She threw herself into Qin Feiyang's arms. Tears of joy instantly wet Qin Feiyang's chest. Qin Feiyang raised his hands. After a slight hesitation, he hugged Shang Guanqiu gently and said with a smile, "You don't have to be so excited to see your big brother back." Big brother. Shang Guanqiu's body stiffened when she heard this. Qin Feiyang, who was hugging Shang Guanqiu, could clearly feel this abnormality. But what could he say? He couldn't say anything, because he said the words big brother on purpose. It was also a response to Shang Guanqiu. In his heart, he could only see her as a sister. He also believed that with Shang Guanqiu's intelligence, she would definitely understand the meaning of this sentence. Of course, Shang Guanqiu could hear it. Otherwise, her body wouldn't have stiffened a little just now. A trace of disappointment filled his heart. But soon, she covered it up and hugged this man's back tightly with both hands. Even if it was only a moment of tenderness, she was already satisfied. Qin Feiyang didn't say anything more. At this time, not saying anything was the best choice. However, to tell the truth, this little girl was not only beautiful, but also had a nice fragrance on her. If it were another man hugging such a woman, he would have been tempted. What's going on? There's no movement at all. Could it be? A single man and a single woman, dry firewood and raging fire, can't even control themselves, Mu Qing muttered outside the door. He couldn't help but put his ear against the door to eavesdrop. Still no sound? What did this mean? Could it be an emotional exchange? He couldn't help but want to open his all-seeing eye to secretly peek. After a while, the door suddenly opened. Mu Qing, who was leaning against the door, was caught off guard. He staggered and fell down. A hand reached over and supported him, so he didn't fall to the ground in a sorry state. "What are you doing?" Qin Feiyang's voice sounded. Mu Qing looked up at Qin Feiyang and saw Qin Feiyang standing in front of him, staring at him with a dark face. Shang Guanqiu was also standing with him. His tears had dried. At this moment, he looked at Mu Qing with an extremely strange expression. "Ha!" Mu Qing laughed dryly, hiding the embarrassment in his expression. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, "Quickly change your appearance and go to the Human Emperor Palace." Go to the Human Emperor Palace now? Mu Qing was stunned. After not seeing each other for so long, shouldn't they find a place where no one was around to talk to each other and comfort each other? Qin Feiyang glanced at Shang Guanqiu next to him and transmitted a voice message. "Mu, I'm warning you. Don't say anything you shouldn't say." "What shouldn't I say? What should I say? You have to make it clear. I don't know what to do." Mu Qing looked at him playfully. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Okay, I won't joke. Mu Qing waved his hand, looked at Shang Guanqiu and said with a smile, "In the past we didn't have much interaction. Maybe we only knew of each other's existence, but we weren't familiar with each other at all. So, from now on, I hope that Chief Pavilion Master can take care of me." Shang Guanqiu couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard this. "You, the owner of the all-seeing eye, need a nobody like me to take care of you? Hurry up, don't dawdle." Qin Feiyang took out 2 phantom elixirs. The 2 quickly changed back to their previous appearances. "What about you?" Mu Qing looked at Shang Guanqiu and asked, "Do I still need to change my appearance?" Shang Guanqiu was stunned. Mu Qing said, "You're so popular now. If you don't change your appearance and go out with us like this, won't we be drowned by their spittle? I'm going out to win some face for you." Shang Guanqiu laughed. "Ha, interesting." Mu Qing laughed. "What's going on? Why is there a man's laughter upstairs?" The 2 guards at the bottom of the stairs heard Mu Qing's laughter, and a trace of suspicion crept up their faces. Then they quickly ran up. When they saw Mu Qing standing outside the door, they were stunned. Then, the 2 of them shouted in unison, "Who are you?" Their eyes also flashed fiercely. "Don't be rude." Shang Guanqiu walked out, stood beside Mu Qing and said, "Master." The 2 of them hurriedly bowed. Qin Feiyang also walked out. When the 2 of them saw Qin Feiyang, they couldn't help but be stunned. "They're all my friends. No need to make a fuss." Then Shang Guanqiu turned around and closed the door. Looking at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing, he said with a smile, "Let's go down." The 2 of them looked at each other and smiled, then walked down 1 floor. When Qin Feiyang and the other 2 walked past them and went straight downstairs, the 2 guards scratched their heads, looking confused. When did the Chief Pavilion Master make these 2 friends? They were also Shang Guanqiu's guards, and they were responsible for his safety. Therefore, they knew Shang Guanqiu's situation better than anyone else. All these years they had never seen these two strange men. Moreover, they looked very ordinary. Master's friends are not people we can guess. Master seems to be going out. Hurry up and follow him to protect him. One of the guards whispered and quickly chased after Shang Guanqiu. What are you doing here? When Qin Feiyang and the other two came to the third floor, the two guards caught up with them. Shang Guanqiu immediately turned to look at the two of them and asked suspiciously, "What can we do here?" "Of course we're here to protect you." The two of them were a little confused. "When you went out in the past, weren't we by your side to protect you?" Shang Guanqiu suddenly smiled and waved his hand, saying, No, go do something else." What a joke. With Qin Feiyang by his side, why would he need other people to protect him? Although she did not know how powerful Qin Feiyang was now, based on the methods he used in the ancient world, a few guards could not compare to him. The two guards looked at each other and didn't know what to do for a moment. Shang Guanqiu ignored them and followed Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing down the stairs. On the first floor. Until now, many young talents were still laughing at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Even rich young masters like us, disciples of the human emperor palace, have no chance to meet the chief pavilion master. What right do these two low-level people have? Isn't this a joke? I said I was the chief pavilion master's old friend, and I said I was the chief pavilion master's lover in his previous life. Would you believe me? Haha, everyone laughed. Even the guards who maintained the order of the treasure pavilion and the staff who were busy couldn't help but laugh. But suddenly, a rich man in a purple robe looked at the corridor leading to the second floor, as if he had seen something incredible. His eyes immediately widened. What are you doing? Several companions next to him noticed his abnormality and looked at him suspiciously. See for yourselves. The young man in purple pointed at the corridor. They looked up and saw two men and a woman walking out. Immediately, they were dumbfounded. The trickster Li Xiaofei, Wang Yu and the familiar-looking young man in luxurious clothes, Hua Yi and Shang Guanfenglan's son, Qin Li, Qin Xian, Qin Yun, Qin Wan, Qin Ji, Qin Yi. Chapter 43-53. How could this be? Weren't they dragged out just now? Why are they walking down the stairs with the chief pavilion master now? The others gradually noticed this scene. They were so shocked that one could stuff an egg into their mouths. The guards and staff around them were also in disbelief. Especially the two guards who had dragged Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing out. Their jaws almost fell off. What were you talking about just now? Mu Qing swaggered over and looked at everyone present, her eyes full of mockery. Impossible. This must be a dream. Someone could not help but roar in his heart. How could the dignified chief pavilion master of the treasure pavilion be acquainted with such low-level trash? However, at this moment, Shang Guanqiu naturally raised her hand and held Qin Feiyang's arm. What? She actually took the initiative to hold that man's arm. Oh my God. I must be sleepwalking now. How could my goddess do such an intimate thing with a man, and such an ordinary man at that? I don't believe it. Shang Guanqiu's action caused a huge uproar. All the young talents present glared at Qin Feiyang angrily. How dare he touch their goddess? This is unforgivable. Boy, I want to fight you one-on-one. Boy, don't hide. Tell me your name. I want to see who you are. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but smile bitterly as he looked at the angry faces. Femme fatale. This sentence was indeed true. Shang Guanqiu's small action made him the target of all the men's attacks. I say, you little girl, aren't you clearly trying to harm me? He turned to look at Shang Guanqiu, his face full of helplessness. Isn't it normal for a sister to hold her brother's arm? Shang Guanqiu transmitted her voice, a sly look in her eyes. Qin Feiyang's heart was filled with bitterness. He had regained his dignity, but the situation was not good. Let's go. He did not resist and let Shang Guanqiu hold his arm as they walked quickly to the gate. Mu Qing took the lead and walked to the gate proudly. Looking at the two guards, she bared her teeth and said, Do you dare to say what you said before again? Sorry, previously we were blind. The two guards quickly bowed and apologized. Who would have thought that these two ordinary people actually knew the chief pavilion master of the treasure pavilion? And it seemed that their relationship was not ordinary. You can't leave. However, before Qin Feiyong could walk out of the gate, he was blocked by a group of young talents. What? Qin Feiyong frowned. Now that Shangguan Qiu was the chief pavilion master, who would dare to disobey her? But at this moment, she looked at this scene as if she didn't see it. Fight! Today you must fight with us. Otherwise we will definitely not let you go. Not interested. Qin Feiyong rubbed his forehead with one hand and looked at the silent Shangguan Qiu. He said helplessly, "This is your treasure pavilion. Aren't you going to do something about it? They are all young talents from wealthy families. I can't afford to offend them." Shangguan Qiu looked at Qin Feiyong and shook her head. She blinked her big eyes and looked very innocent. Seeing the way Shangguan Qiu looked at Qin Feiyong, the group of young talents became even angrier. They thought that Shangguan Qiu was acting coquettishly in front of Qin Feiyong. "If you are a man, come and fight." "Yes, fight." The group of people shouted angrily. Even the people on the street outside were attracted to the scene. Without exception, when they saw Shangguan Qiu holding the arm of a strange man, they were all in disbelief. Mu Qing stood outside the door and looked at Qin Feiyong, who was in a bad situation. Instead of helping him, she crossed her arms and watched the show gloatingly. Qin Feiyong sighed helplessly. He glanced at the people blocking the door and said patiently, "Don't test my patience. Get out of the way. I have something to do." "What is it? Are you two going to—" "No, you can't defile our goddess." The group of young talents looked at Qin Feiyong and Shangguan Qiu in shock and anger. Obviously they had misunderstood. Qin Feiyong was about to break down. He should not have listened to Shangguan Qiu. If he had directly opened the space-time tunnel to go to the human emperor palace, he would not have had to deal with all this trouble. Phew. Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and continued to be patient. He said, "For the last time, get out of the way." "No. You have to fight with us." Someone shouted. "That's right. Let's see what you are capable of to win the favor of our goddess." The others also joined in the commotion. In the past, if someone dared to make a scene like this, the guards of the treasure pavilion would have already taken action. But now the chief pavilion master was here. Most importantly, she did not say a word. Therefore, the guards who maintained the order of the treasure pavilion did not know whether to take action or not. "Fine. You asked for it." Qin Feiyong shook his head helplessly. Boom! A terrifying aura surged out from his body. The group of young people blocking the door immediately spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. So powerful? Among those young talents there are a few half-ninth heaven realm cultivators. How could he send them flying so easily? Everyone looked at Qin Feiyong in shock. But they knew that this aura was not even 1% of Qin Feiyong's at his peak. Otherwise, these small fries would have died on the spot. "Don't provoke me again. Otherwise, I will really get angry and the consequences will be quite serious." Qin Feiyong warned them and strode out of the treasure pavilion. Shangguan Qiu was still holding on to Qin Feiyong's arm, and had no intention of letting go. Not bad. Angry because of a beauty, Mu Qing chased after them and grinned. "Get lost." Qin Feiyong's face darkened. "It's no use telling me to get lost. You have to tell them to get lost." Mu Qing looked at the surrounding streets. Qin Feiyong looked up and the corners of his mouth twitched. The group of young talents followed behind them, unwilling to give up. And the passers-by all stopped and looked at them curiously. Qin Feiyong felt like a monkey now. He whispered, "Why don't we open the space-time tunnel and go directly to the human emperor palace?" "No." Shangguan Qiu shook her head. "Why?" Qin Feiyong was very depressed. Didn't they see that he had become the public enemy now? "I like to walk on the street," Shangguan Qiu said. The corners of Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched again. This girl must be doing it on purpose. Helplessly, he could only bite the bullet and walk all the way to the city gate. "Isn't that the chief pavilion lord? Look. The chief pavilion lord is holding a man's arm intimately and talking and laughing with him. What's going on? Oh my god, my goddess. Don't stop me, I'm going to kill him." Along the way, not to mention Qin Feiyong, even Mu Qing, who was gloating, looked at the crazy young people around them and could not help but feel numb. Shang Guanqiu is too powerful. In the future, who would dare to walk with her? Sister Qiu. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded behind them. This voice, Qin Feiyong was taken aback. He turned his head around and saw a fairy-like woman walking towards them. That's right. She was the tower master of the Heaven Immortal Tower, Miss Fairy. She was wearing a long dress that reached the floor and was as white as snow. Her black hair was like a waterfall and fluttered in the wind. Her figure was like a demon. Mu Qing turned around and her eyes lit up. She said telepathically, "Old Qin, I feel that I'm going to fall in love." Huh. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Didn't she say that she wanted to pursue Shang Guanqiu? Why was she interested in Miss Fairy now? Falling in love with every girl she saw. She was indeed not a good person. I was joking just now, but I'm serious now. Help me plan. If it succeeds, I'll invite you to my wedding. Mu Qing stared at Miss Fairy, her eyes shining. Qin Feiyong looked at Mu Qing's eyes. She did not seem to be joking. He said telepathically, "Wait, what do you mean? If I don't help you plan now, will you not invite me to your wedding in the future?" Huh. Mu Qing was stunned. She said in a hurry, "How is that possible? What's our relationship? Even if you don't come, I'll have to call a sedan chair and invite you here personally." Hypocrite. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. Miss Fairy. Shang Guanqiu looked at Miss Fairy with a trace of joy on his face. Then, he finally let go of Qin Feiyong and ran to Miss Fairy. "Finally, you let go of me." Qin Feiyong breathed a sigh of relief and wiped the sweat on his forehead. However, when he looked at the crowd around him, his face froze. Although Shang Guanqiu had let go of his arm, everyone was still looking at him with hostility in their eyes. Especially the young genius who had been following behind them. His ferocious gaze seemed as if he wished to skin Qin Feiyong alive. "Do you feel that it's harder than a bloody battle?" Mu Qing snickered. "Nonsense." Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him. "I understand you. Don't worry. I'll always be by your side and share your burden." Mu Qing patted Qin Feiyong's shoulder and smiled. Qin Feiyong's mouth kept twitching. This guy didn't have such an attitude before. What? Now that he likes Miss Fairy and wants me to play matchmaker, he's trying to please me? How can there be such a good thing? Sister Qiu, what's wrong with you? I was in Tianyue Tower just now and heard the people downstairs say that you were holding the hand of a strange man. I didn't believe it, but when I came here it was true. Miss Fairy pulled Qin Feiyong aside and asked in a low voice while looking at him. Shang Guanqiu was stunned. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said with a smile, "Sister, he's not a stranger." Not a stranger? Miss Fairy was stunned. She looked at Qin Feiyong for a moment and said with a frown, "I've never seen him. Tell me honestly, did he bewitch you? Otherwise, why would you like him?" "Bewitch me?" Shang Guanqiu shook his head with a wry smile and said, "Sister, your imagination is too rich." Chapter 43-54. In her heart, she really wanted to be with this man forever, hand in hand until they were old. But this would never happen. Because in this man's heart, there was only that woman. And she could only be this man's sister forever. Since you're not his lover, why are you so intimate with him? And on the street, do you know that you're the chief pavilion master of the treasure school now? Aren't you afraid that he'll affect you negatively? Miss Fairy frowned. As a friend for many years, she had long regarded Shang Guanqiu as her own sister. So she was worried that Shang Guanqiu would be cheated by some stinky man. What negative effects can there be? Besides, even if there is, I don't care. Shang Guanqiu smiled indifferently and pulled Miss Fairy to Qin Feiyong and Qin Feiyong. He looked at them and said with a smile, "I don't think I need to introduce them to you." Qin Feiyong was about to say no, but Mu Qing beat him to it. "Yes, of course. And you have to introduce them in detail." He winked at Shang Guanqiu as he said this. Shang Guanqiu was very smart. He immediately saw through Mu Qing's thoughts. However, she was a little hesitant, because she had heard about Mu Qing. She was totally different from Qin Feiyong, white-eyed wolf and lunatic. She would be happy to find a good husband for Miss Fairy. But Mu Qing might not be good. "Why don't you introduce them? Do I know them before?" Miss Fairy looked at Shangguanqiu suspiciously. She had no impression of these two men. Well, Shangguanqiu looked at Qin Feiyong hesitantly. He was obviously asking if he should tell Miss Fairy about their identities. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Let's go to the Human Emperor Palace first. Okay. Shangguanqiu nodded. He looked at Miss Fairy and smiled. Sister, why don't you come with us to the Human Emperor Palace? Maybe there will be a surprise later. Yes. Let's go to the Human Emperor Palace together. Mu Qing nodded repeatedly. Miss Fairy looked at Mu Qing cautiously. She felt that there was something wrong with the way this person looked at her. She turned to look at Shangguanqiu and asked suspiciously, "What surprise? If you say it now, is it still a surprise?" Shangguanqiu smiled and said stiffly, "Anyway, someone will take care of Tianyue Tower for you. Come with me." Go. My hand is about to break because of you." Miss Fairy looked at her helplessly. Then the two women held hands and walked towards the city gate. Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing followed behind them unhurriedly. From the very beginning, Miss Fairy had been wary of Mu Qing. "I say, can you be a little more reserved? You'll scare others like this." Qin Feiyong looked at Mu Qing speechlessly. Why did all his friends become such idiots whenever they met a woman they liked? Really? Mu Qing was a little surprised and asked, "Do I look scary now? You look like a hungry wolf now." Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him. "No way. Then, did I give her a bad first impression?" Mu Qing suddenly panicked. "You only know now?" Qin Feiyong shook his head. He was really slow. Now that there was another Miss Celestial, the pressure on Qin Feiyong was even greater. Mu Qing naturally could not escape and became the target of all the young talents. Because both Shangguanqiu and Miss Fairy were now goddesses in the ancient world. It was no exaggeration to say that their pursuers and admirers could form a line from the north of the Divine Land to the south of the Divine Land. Now, Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing were walking together with two goddesses. Could other men stay calm? Of course not. However, no one dared to make a move. The Human Emperor Palace. Like the Dragon God Palace, it was spread all over the ancient world. It was in the north, west, south, and east of the Divine Land. The Human Emperor Palace in the north was in the original Dragon God Palace. A stairway to heaven led to the clouds. At the top of the stairway to heaven stood a magnificent door. Beside it stood a tall stone tablet with the words, Human Emperor Palace, engraved on it. Below the stone tablet sat an unfamiliar old man. He seemed to be the expert guarding the door of the Human Emperor Palace. The aura he exuded had reached the ninth heaven realm of perfection. The cultivation of the ninth heaven realm of perfection was quite powerful in the ancient world. The old man suddenly felt that someone was coming up the stairway. He immediately opened his eyes and looked down at the stairway. He saw two men and two women walking up the stairway, talking and laughing. A trace of suspicion appeared in the old man's eyes. He naturally knew Shangguanqiu and Miss Fairy, but he had no impression of the two young men beside them. "Greetings, Elder Yu." After reaching the top, Shangguanqiu and Miss Fairy immediately bowed to the old man. No. The old man quickly waved his hand. Although he was an expert of the Human Emperor Palace, Shangguanqiu and Miss Fairy were famous figures in the ancient world. Especially Shangguanqiu. Not only was he the chief pavilion master of the treasure pavilion, but he was also the disciple of Supreme Cloud. Most importantly, although they were juniors, their cultivation was stronger than the old man's. "You're an elder. It's only right for us to bow to you." Shangguanqiu smiled gently and asked, "How's the competition of the Human Emperor Palace going?" "I don't know about that." Elder Yu shook his head. He had been guarding this place, so he didn't know what was going on inside. Of course he didn't care. After all, it was just a competition between disciples. Miss Fairy asked, "Can we go in and take a look?" Of course. Elder Yu nodded but looked at Qin Feiyong and Mu Qing hesitantly. Shangguanqiu smiled and said, "Don't worry. They're our friends. They won't mess around in the Human Emperor Palace. I hope you can make an exception. With you as a guarantor, of course I'm not worried. Let's go in. Today's competition will probably be more exciting. Because many genius disciples will be participating." Elder Yu smiled. "Many genius disciples will be participating? Why is that?" In the past, these geniuses would not even bother to look at such a competition. Shang Guanqiu was suspicious. Not long ago, the Grand Palace Master personally gave an order to increase the rewards of this year's competition. The disciple who wins first place will not only receive a low-level divine artifact, but also a low-level divine art. So, the genius disciples who didn't plan to participate have all rushed to the battlefield. Elder Yu explained. Increasing the rewards of the competition? This has never happened before. Old Master Yi, what is he trying to do? Miss Fairy was puzzled. I don't know either. The Grand Palace Master didn't say the reason. He just told everyone to do it. The strangest thing is that Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast, the two palace masters, have never paid any attention to the sparring between the disciples in the past, but today they actually came to supervise in person. Elder Yu said in confusion. Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast are here too? Miss Fairy was even more surprised when she heard this. She mumbled. Could it be that some incredible genius has appeared in the human emperor's palace this time? Shang Guanqiu's eyes flickered. Suddenly, she looked at Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing. Old Master Yi suddenly increased the rewards of the competition, and both Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast were here personally. Could it be related to these two guys? It was too sudden. And it happened to be the day Qin Feiyang and the others returned to the ancient world. No matter how coincidental it was, it couldn't be so coincidental. Mu Qing said telepathically. Old Master Yi must have done this to let us see how outstanding the genius disciples of the human emperor's palace are. Yes. Now I'm really looking forward to it. Qin Feiyang smiled secretly. Under the lead of Shang Guanqiu and Miss Fairy, the two stepped into the human emperor's palace. A familiar and long-awaited scene entered Qin Feiyang's vision. The current layout of the human emperor's palace was not much different from the dragon god's palace of the past. The first island, the second island, the third island. These islands of different sizes were suspended in the clouds. They were full of essence and spirit qi. From afar they looked like immortal mountains. At this moment, there was a sea of people in the sky above the various islands. These people were basically all disciples of the human emperor's palace. Some were strong and some were weak, but their auras were all outstanding without exception. There was also a symbol embroidered on their clothes. This symbol was the word human. This was the symbol of the human emperor's palace. On the other side of the void, this place was divided into a battlefield. A huge barrier covered the battlefield, and inside the barrier 2 young men were fighting wildly. Both of their cultivation bases were half a step into the 9th heaven realm. The current disciples of the human emperor's palace all had such cultivation bases, which was indeed much stronger than the dragon god's palace of the past. This was because in the past, the disciples of the dragon god's palace were generally at the ultimate god realm. In the 9th heaven realm they were basically all monstrous figures. Old Qin, look up. Mu Qing suddenly sent a message to Qin Feiyang and looked up at the sky above the barrier. Qin Feiyang heard and looked up as well. He saw a man and a woman standing in the sky above the barrier. The auras of these two people were extremely powerful. Even from afar one could feel an enormous pressure from their bodies. A smile appeared on Qin Feiyang's face as he looked at the two. This man and woman were Sovereign Cloud and Sovereign Beast, the ultimate gods of the ancient world. Great perfection, imperishable realm. Their cultivation bases have improved quite quickly over the years. Mu Qing thought. Yes. They only need to comprehend the 5th profound to step into the half-step sovereign realm. Qin Feiyang smiled inwardly. At the same time, Sovereign Cloud and Sovereign Beast also noticed Qin Feiyang and the other 3 entering the human emperor's palace, and they couldn't hide their excitement. Yi Zhong had sent them a message to tell them that Qin Feiyang had returned. In addition, Yi Zhong also said that Qin Feiyang would most likely follow Shang Guanqiu to the human emperor's palace. Although Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing had changed their appearances, and they couldn't tell who was the real Qin Feiyang, one of them had to be Qin Feiyang since the 2 of them had followed Shang Guanqiu and Miss Celestial to the human emperor's palace. Little guys, do your best. The man who once shocked the ancient world and created countless legends is now standing there looking at you. If you're lucky enough to be valued by him, you'll have a meteoric rise in the future. Sovereign Cloud suppressed his excitement and glanced at the disciples of the human emperor's palace as he muttered to himself. Sovereign Beast glanced at Sovereign Cloud and couldn't help but smile. Chapter 43-55. On the battlefield. The two young men were full of fighting spirit. All kinds of spells were being used, dazzling the audience. In other people's eyes, this was definitely an exciting battle. For example, at this moment, Shangguanqiu and Miss Angel could not help but nod their heads in admiration as they watched the two men fighting intensely. But for Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing, this was just a small game. Such a battle was not attractive at all. Mu Qing waved her hand and 4 chairs appeared. She said lightly, "Sit down and watch." Then she took the lead and sat down. Qin Feiyang also sat on the chair. Miss Angel looked at the two of them in shock. What's going on? The two seniors, Supremacy Yun and Supremacy Beast, are standing up there now. How dare you two juniors sit here so brazenly? You're so ignorant and have no manners at all. Just as she was about to reprimand them, Shangguanqiu also sat down beside Qin Feiyang. Miss Angel was dumbfounded. Why is this little sister being so presumptuous? Supremacy Yun is your teacher. He's still standing. How dare you as a disciple sit down? Mu Qing bared her teeth and said, "If you don't think it's tiring to stand, then keep standing." Miss Angel glared at Mu Qing fiercely, then looked up at Supremacy Yun and Supremacy Beast. Finally she chose to sit down. That was how she comforted herself. They were all sitting, but she was the only one standing. She seemed like a crane in a flock of chickens. After sitting down, Qin Feiyang no longer paid attention to the battlefield. Instead, he glanced at the disciples standing in the air above the islands. With his current cultivation, he could even see the deepest part of the island, the 10th island, clearly. Soon, a smile crept into his eyes as he murmured, "It's been a long time." In the air above the 9th island, at the front of the crowd, he saw a familiar figure. It was a woman in her 20s. She wore a light gold long dress. She was tall and slender, and her hair was like a waterfall. From afar, she looked like a fairy descending from heaven. That's right. This woman was Wang Yuer. After all these years, Wang Yuer had become even more attractive. Her entire body exuded the beauty of a mature woman. Moreover, she looked even more pure without using her charm technique. It was no wonder that so many young geniuses from the ancient realm wanted to pursue her. Tsk. Missing out on her is the biggest regret of your life. Mu Qing noticed Qin Feiyang's gaze and looked up. When he saw Wang Yuer, he couldn't help laughing secretly. Don't talk nonsense. Qin Feiyang secretly glared at him. Now, what he was most afraid of was that these guys would blindly kick up a fuss and complicate the relationship that he had worked so hard to repair. What are you guys talking about? Why does it look so strange? Shangguanqiu looked at the two of them suspiciously. Nothing. Qin Feiyang hurriedly waved his hand. But suddenly, he then looked behind Wang Yuer. Behind Wang Yuer stood several young men and women. There were 7 people in total, 4 men and 3 women. The men's faces were like jade and the women were young and beautiful. They all exuded an extraordinary temperament. So it's these little guys, Qin Feiyang muttered. Yes, they were his younger siblings. The 7 of them each had their own merits. Qin Li, as his name suggested, had a fierce look in his eyes and demeanor. Facing him, it was as if he was being stared at by an eagle. Qin Yun appeared mature and intellectual. Qin Wan, natural and unrestrained, gentle and moving. Qin Xian, with his hands on his shoulders, appeared very lazy in his demeanor and eyes. Qin Ji, steady, arrogant, taciturn. As for the twins Qin Yi and Qin Yi, the former was mischievous and the latter was frivolous, just like a little playboy. Qin Feiyang had a deep impression of these 7 younger siblings, especially Qin Li. Back then, he was even driven out of the capital for some reason. Of course, this was also the deep love and deep hatred. He hoped that these younger siblings now would not be like those princes and princesses in the past. After Qin Li was driven out of the capital, he also had a taste of what he had suffered back then. So, in contrast, Qin Li was more steady. As for Qin Yun, Qin Wan, Qin Xian, Qin Ji, Qin Yi and Qin Feiyang, when he came back last time he also made them suffer a lot. Especially Qin Yi and Qin Yi. At that time when he sent them to the Black Tortoise world to train, they were only 2 little ones. Because they were too young, their mental endurance naturally could not be compared to Qin Xian and the others. Could be said that The time when they were training in the Black Tortoise world was a kind of torture and suffering for them. However, the experience this time also brought them quite a lot of benefits. Anyway, Qin Feiyong was very satisfied. These brothers and sisters of yours are all quite outstanding. Seeing Qin Feiyong sizing up Qin Li and the others, Shang Guanqiu transmitted her voice and laughed. Originally, as Qin Feiyong's younger siblings, they could completely rely on Qin Feiyong's status in the ancient world to enjoy the best resources and treatment. However, the 7 of them did not do so. When they came to the ancient world and entered the human emperor palace, they were no different from ordinary disciples. No matter what resources they had, they relied on their own ability to fight for them. They had never mentioned to anyone that Qin Feiyong was their big brother. Master also said so. However, I still have to see it with my own eyes. Qin Feiyong smiled secretly. You still don't believe it? Shang Guanqiu was slightly stunned and transmitted her voice. Wait a moment, I will let Master arrange for them to fight. Then without waiting for Qin Feiyong's response, she transmitted her voice to Supreme Cloud. Master, let Qin Li and the others fight. Supreme Cloud looked at Shang Guanqiu. Shang Guanqiu pointed at Qin Feiyong who was sitting next to him. Supreme Cloud suddenly understood. It turned out that he was Qin Feiyong. After glancing at Qin Feiyong, Supreme Cloud looked at the battlefield. The outcome of the 2 young men was about to be decided. About 10 breaths later, one of the young men spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out on the spot, losing the ability to fight. The other young man did not fare well either. Because their strength was about the same, it was a narrow victory. The defeated young man reluctantly retreated from the barrier, while the victorious young man stood valiantly inside. Looking at this naive performance, Supreme Cloud shook his head and laughed. He asked, "Do you still want to continue?" Of course. The young man nodded. Although he was stubbornly holding on, his courage was commendable. Why do you still want to continue? Mu Qing was puzzled. You don't know that the rules of the human emperor's palace are based on a 100-win streak system. Whoever obtains a 100-win streak first will be the champion. Shang Guanqiu explained. So that's how it is. Mu Qing suddenly understood and asked, "Can't we take a break midway?" "We can't. If we can take a break, then won't the strong disciples be invincible?" Shang Guanqiu shook his head. "We can't take a break," Mu Qing murmured and smiled. "Then this 100-win streak is still very difficult. The reward is so generous, how can it be easy?" Shang Guanqiu smiled faintly. In the sky. Hearing the young man's words, Supreme Cloud glanced at the disciples in the sky above the islands and suddenly pointed at Qin Yi. "You go." "Me?" Qin Yi was stunned. He did not expect to be called out by Supreme Cloud in public. "Yes, you. Your cultivation is similar to his." Supreme Cloud nodded. "No," Qin Yi quickly said. "I didn't plan to participate at all. I just accompanied my sister to join in the fun. Why don't you let my sister go? My sister is very interested." "Call her sister." Qin Yi's face suddenly darkened. "You are my sister." Qin Yi bared his teeth. Qin Yi's veins bulged as she waved her fist and said angrily, "Do you believe that I won't beat you up?" Qin Yi's face changed and he quickly hid behind Qin Li and Qin Yun. "Brother, sister, my sister is bullying me again. Hurry up and teach her a lesson." Qin Li and Qin Yun looked at each other and the corners of their mouths twitched. "How old are you? Why are you still so childish? It's really frustrating." Qin Feiyong couldn't help but shake his head and laugh when he saw this scene. When he first met these 2 little guys in the Great Qin Empire, they were also like this, one fighting to be the older brother and the other fighting to be the older sister. In the sky, Supreme Cloud's face was dark as he glared at Qin Yi. "Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Qin Yi pursed his lips and said unhappily, "Aren't you forcing me to be a prostitute? Even if you are Supreme Cloud, you can't be so overbearing." Supreme Cloud's gaze turned cold. Feeling Supreme Cloud's anger, Qin Yi hurriedly waved his hand and said, No, don't do it. I'll go, okay?" Helpless, he could only enter the barrier. The young man in the barrier was a little depressed. Why did Supreme Cloud call this little monster to go? Wasn't he deliberately trying to break his winning streak? Qin Yi's aura was also at the half-ninth heaven's realm. However, All the disciples in the human sovereign palace knew that this guy had a large number of god arts, and they were all high-level god arts. The most important thing was, although he was young, his combat experience and awareness were extremely terrifying. Not to mention the same level, even those 1 or 2 levels higher than him were not his opponent. At the same time, the other disciples couldn't figure it out. Why did Supreme Cloud call Chini to go? Chini looked at the young man and suddenly took out a healing pill and threw it to the young man. Don't say that I bullied you. Hurry up and heal yourself. The young man caught the pill and looked at Chini in a daze. What did this mean? Chini picked his ear with his little finger and said indifferently, "Don't get me wrong, I don't mean to look down on you. I just don't want to bully a seriously injured person." Although his words were pleasant to hear, his attitude was infuriating to anyone who saw it, because this kind of attitude was born with a kind of contempt. The young man crushed the healing pill and roared, "Who are you looking down on? Even if I'm seriously injured, I can still fight you for 300 rounds. Boom! As his voice fell, the young man activated 2 perfect divine arts and aggressively attacked Qin. Why are you so ungrateful? Qin raised his eyebrows. Boom! As he waved his hand, 1 golden dragon after another appeared. There were a total of 99 of them, and they shook the surroundings. They formed a huge killing formation that carried a monstrous might as they charged forward. Even the void within the barrier began to tremble. Chapter 4356. A perfect divine art. I don't think I've seen it before. Mu Qing muttered. There are countless divine arts in the world. It's normal that you haven't seen it before. But this kid's divine art has surpassed the boundary of a perfect divine art. It's almost half a step into the level of a heaven-defying divine art. Qin Feiyong glanced at the 99 golden dragons and smiled faintly. Now, it was too easy for him to tell the grade of the deity incantation. He could tell at a glance. Roar! The dragon roared. The killing array formed by the 99 golden dragons flooded the sky and blasted towards the 2 perfect divine arts of the young man. Accompanied by a deafening loud noise, the 2 perfect divine arts collapsed on the spot. The golden dragon killing array arrived in front of the young man. The young man's eyes were full of anger and despair. But suddenly, the killing array stopped half a meter away from the young man. The young man was so scared that he peed his pants on the spot. I told you to take a rest first, but you didn't believe me. Qin sighed. With a wave of his hand, the golden dragon killing array dissipated. This kid is very benevolent. He didn't kill the other party, but his attitude is really asking for a beating just like you. Mu Qing transmitted her voice. Just say it, don't drag everything to me. Qin Feiyong's face darkened. He was very satisfied with Qin's performance, because at least he didn't bully the weak. Next, Qin looked at the people in the sky above the major islands with a listless look. He seemed to be very uninterested. However, at this moment, a sense of crisis swept over. The young man who was paralyzed in the void suddenly had a trace of resentment in his eyes. He took out a divine artifact and rushed towards Qin. This was a supreme-grade divine artifact, and its sharpness swept across the sky. Sneak attack. Qin's eyebrows suddenly raised, turned around and directly punched out. Immediately, under the shocked gaze of countless disciples, Qin only relied on 1 fist to smash the supreme-grade divine artifact in the young man's hand. How strong is his physical body and strength? He shattered a supreme-grade divine artifact with a single punch. I think the strength of his physical body has already surpassed the level of supreme-grade divine artifacts. Everyone was dumbfounded. The young man standing opposite Qin was also dumbfounded. Immediately, he began to tremble, shattering a supreme-grade divine artifact with his bare hands. This fleshly body was too strong. Was this the strength of this little freak? Qin Li and the others had always kept a low profile in the human emperor's palace. Therefore, apart from the upper echelons of the human emperor's palace, the disciples below did not know much about their strength. Therefore, at this moment they were deeply shocked by the strength that Qin had displayed. Whoosh! Qin took a step forward and landed in front of the young man. He grabbed the young man's neck and hung him up in the air like a little chick. Do you really think I don't have a temper? Tell me I've been giving in to you before. I didn't want to make things too ugly for you. His 5 fingers continued to exert force. The young man's face was flushed red as he struggled continuously. He was on the verge of suffocating. You can't kill people. Qinli, who was watching the battle, coldly snorted. Qinli glared at Qinli with dissatisfaction, but he also loosened his hand and threw the young man out of the enchantment. He seemed to be rather fearful of Qinli, but that was true. With Qinli's fierce eyes, who wouldn't be afraid? Moreover, they were brothers who grew up together. Qinli knew Qinli's character better than anyone else. I'll challenge you. A disciple of the 9th heaven state suddenly stood up and rushed into the enchantment like lightning. 9th heaven state minor completion? Looks like I'll have to give you 3 moves. Qinli sized up the disciple. Don't be arrogant. The disciple of the 9th heaven state minor completion laughed angrily and activated an auxiliary divine art. Like a ghost, he appeared behind Qinli in an instant and threw a punch at Qinli's head from an extremely difficult angle. That's it? Qinli laughed and also activated an auxiliary divine art and dodged like lightning. His speed was even faster than the disciples. This is a perfect auxiliary divine art. Lord Supreme Cloud, Lord Beast, this disciple is not convinced. Why did you give him so many powerful divine arts? The disciple immediately looked up at Supreme Cloud and the Beast Lord and shouted angrily. The Beast Lord and the Beast Lord looked at each other with an innocent expression. Whether it was Qinli or Qinli and the others, they had all helped him in private. In fact, no one would believe it if they said it out loud. The divine arts that these brothers and sisters had mastered were all comprehended by themselves. Don't talk nonsense. This is my own comprehension. Qinli frowned. He hated it when people said that he relied on his connections. What? Your own comprehension? Not only the disciples standing opposite Qinli, but even the disciples in the air above the islands were in disbelief. No way. He's that strong. Even Mu Qing was shocked. I also can't believe it. Qin Feiyang shook his head. If Qinli had really comprehended all of these divine arts, then it was indeed shocking, because even he couldn't do this back then. Although he had also comprehended divine arts and raised the level of his divine arts, most of them, such as the Divine Dragon Island's Fire Phoenix art, were passed down from generation to generation. I knew that no one would believe me even if I said it. But this is the truth. Qinli took a step forward and used a perfect auxiliary divine art to increase his speed to the extreme. The disciple didn't have time to react and was severely injured by the punch. He is indeed powerful. He only relied on the strength of his body and his speed to suppress those at the initial 9th heaven state. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. These brothers and sisters didn't let him down. They also didn't disappoint the purple gold dragon blood flowing in their bodies. Next, Qinli was only at the half 9th heaven state, but he had easily won dozens of battles. He even defeated a few disciples at the greater 9th heaven state during this period. Most importantly, from the beginning to the end, Qinli wasn't injured at all. What a monster! My hands are itching to fight. Suddenly, a burst of laughter sounded. A young man in black walked out step by step from the human race. This person was about 1.8 meters tall. His thick black hair fluttered even though there was no wind. His entire body exuded an extremely terrifying and ferocious aura, like a violent and ferocious beast. Wang Xiu. This is the top 100 genius disciples of the Northern Human Emperor Palace. I didn't think that even he would come this time. I heard that his cultivation has already reached the peak 9th heaven state, and he's only one step away from the half-eternal realm. Everyone immediately began to whisper. Wang Yuer looked at Wang Xiu and suddenly said, "You're at the peak 9th heaven state. Isn't it a bit bullying to challenge a half 9th heaven state?" Senior sister Yuer, that's a bit too much. You saw it with your own eyes. Even those junior brothers and sisters at the greater 9th heaven state were no match for this little monster. Maybe I, at the peak 9th heaven state, can't beat him either. Wang Xiu chuckled. Wang Yuer raised her eyebrows. The difference between the half 9th heaven state and the peak 9th heaven state was almost one realm. However, the rules of the competition didn't say that they couldn't challenge. What to do? The relationship between Wang Yuer and Qin Feiyang was obvious to all, so over the years, She had taken care of Qin Feiyong's brothers and sisters as if they were her own. Sister Yu'er, don't worry about me. Qin Yi grinned at Wang Yu'er and then looked at Wang Shiyu. I admit defeat. What? Admit defeat? Wang Shiyu was stunned. The others were also stunned. How could he admit defeat before the competition even started? Moreover, he had already won dozens of matches in a row. If he persisted, it would be 100 matches in a row. Qin Yi ignored everyone's gaze and walked straight out of the barrier and returned to Wang Yu'er. Qin Li looked at Qin Yi and said indifferently, "This choice is very rational. I was a little worried before that you would be impulsive and accept his challenge. Brother, have I always been a silly little brother in your eyes? This Wang Shiyu, I do have the confidence to defeat him, but I may also be injured. Then wouldn't the power of our bloodline be exposed?" Qin Yi looked at Qin Li unhappily. When Qin Li heard this, a smile appeared on his indifferent face, but he quickly covered it up. He glanced at his 6 brothers and sisters and asked, "Do you want the reward for first place?" "Whatever." Qin Xian shrugged, as if he wasn't interested at all. Qin Li's face darkened. No matter what, this kid always had an indifferent attitude. He said angrily, "You go and get the first 100 matches in a row." Huh? Qin Xian was stunned and frowned. "Why me? Didn't you say anything?" "Anything is fine. Don't talk nonsense. Go." Qin Li kicked out with a lot of force. Qin Xian immediately staggered and ran out. Bastard, what kind of man is a sneak attack from behind? Qin Xian turned his head and glared at Qin Li. To this, Qin Li was expressionless. "I'll settle the score with you later." Qin Xian glared at him fiercely, then activated teleportation and stepped into the barrier. He looked at Wang Shiyu and said, "A genius ranked in the top 100 actually came to bully a half-step 9th heaven realm person. You're really impressive. Come on, don't waste my time. I hope you can continue to be so arrogant later." Wang Shiyu chuckled. Shua. In an instant he disappeared from Qin Xian's sight. The best auxiliary divine art. You dare to take this out and embarrass yourself? Qin Xian's face was full of disdain. As he stepped out, he also disappeared from Wang Shiyu's sight. This speed was many times faster than Wang Shiyu. Pa! Soon, the crisp sound of a slap was heard. Wang Shiyu flew out on the spot, and there was an eye-catching palm print on his face. Wisps of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. How is this possible? It's actually a heaven-defying auxiliary divine art. This scene shocked everyone present. Wang Shiyu also stared at Qin Xian angrily. With this strength you can be ranked in the top 100? With this, you dare to come to my brother? Don't you know that I'm a protective person? Killing intent surged in Qin Xian's eyes. He stepped on the heaven-defying auxiliary divine art and beat Wang Shiyu violently. In just a short while, Wang Shiyu was beaten black and blue. His face was swollen like a pig's head. His body was dripping with blood, and he was in an extremely sorry state. Chapter 43-57. So powerful. I didn't expect Qin Xian's strength to be so powerful. Even Wang Shiyu can't fight back in front of him. He's really a low-profile person. Everyone's heart was in turmoil. A genius disciple in the top 100 was beaten to such a state. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would dare to believe it? Mu Qing said telepathically. Old Qin looking at them. Do you feel like the student has surpassed the master? Yes. Qin Feiyong didn't deny it. These brothers and sisters were indeed stronger than he was back then. Of course, it was not without reason that they were so strong now. This was because the Dragon God Palace back then, whether it was the cultivation environment or various resources, could not be compared to the current human emperor palace. Ah! There was a painful scream. Wang Shiyu was kicked out of the spirit barrier by Qin Xian and rolled miserably in the void. Since I've already made my move, then I'll be arrogant for a while. Other than the top 100 geniuses don't join in the fun. Qin Xian looked at the people standing above the 10th island and waved his hand. All of you can come one by one. The 10th island used to be a medicine field and resource reserve in the Dragon God Palace. But now, as the number of disciples in the human emperor palace increased, the 10th island had become the residence of the disciples. However, it was not easy to enter the 10th island. One must have extraordinary talent and strength. In other words, all the disciples on the 10th island were the future pillars of the human emperor palace. At this very moment Qin Xian wanted to challenge the elite of the elites on the 10th island, which was the so-called top 100 disciples. Qin Xian, heaven-defying auxiliary divine technique. Let me have a taste of it. Bang! A monstrous aura erupted. A purple-robed youth charged out and activated his divine technique. His divine aura shook the surroundings. Heaven-defying divine technique. He's Li Tianxing. He's a peak 9 heavens realm genius disciple rank 79th. Just like the rumors said, he has mastered a heaven-defying divine technique. Everyone whispered. However, Qin Xian had a look of disdain. Streaks of blood light emerged from his body and turned into a ferocious blood dragon that circled around him. The dragon's aura and murderous aura surged. This aura, it's actually a heaven-defying deity art. The disciples in the human emperor palace looked at the blood dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws in disbelief. He had mastered 2 heaven-defying divine arts. Among them, there was even a heaven-defying deity art. Who could beat them? Boom! After a few rounds, Li Tianxing spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out of the battlefield in a sorry state. Next. In less than an hour, Qin Xian easily obtained 100 consecutive victories. There was simply no match for him. I'll go. With such strength, he's still staying on the first island. Isn't he pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger? Everyone was very dissatisfied. Not bad. Although Qin Li and the others were standing behind Wang Yuer now, they were actually living on the first island. The overall strength of the first island was the weakest among all the major islands in the human emperor palace. Although there were rumors that they were all monstrous geniuses, rumors were only rumors. He had never seen them with his own eyes. Looking at it now, it was truly astonishing. I don't know. We're keeping a low profile. Qin Xian grinned and looked at the geniuses on the 10th island. Sorry, I accidentally revealed my strength. Next time, I'll remember to preserve my strength. The geniuses who had been defeated had unpleasant looks on their faces. All hail Brother Xian! A loud shout could be heard. Qin Xian turned his head toward the first island and saw a young man waving at him. His face darkened as he said furiously, "Impudent. Call me uncle." Piss off. The young man's face darkened. This voice. Qin Feiyang and Mu Qing exchanged glances. Why did it sound so familiar? They turned their heads to look, and a trace of astonishment crept up their faces. Why was it this kid? It was the narcissistic young man they had met in the Holy Dragon City, who gave them a strange sense of familiarity. He knows Qin Xian? Qin Xian, and he's calling him uncle? Is he really the descendant of one of our old friends? Mu Qing frowned. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and turned to Shangguanqiu and Miss Sky Fairy, asking, "Who's that kid?" The two of them looked over. Miss Sky Fairy shook her head with a smile and was about to speak. However, Shangguanqiu suddenly stopped her and said to Qin Feiyang, "Guess." Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. "If I could guess, why would I ask you?" Miss Sky Fairy looked at Shangguanqiu suspiciously. Mu Qing turned to Miss Sky Fairy and said helplessly, "Don't tell me you don't know him. He called you aunt." "It's none of your business." Miss Sky Fairy harumphed. At this moment, the young man also noticed Qin Feiyang and the other 3 sitting on the stone platform at the exit. What's going on? Why are Auntie and Auntie sitting with them? They don't seem to be disciples of the human emperor palace. The young man mumbled and flew toward the stone platform. At the same time, Qin Xian also left the barrier and landed beside Qin Li. He said unhappily, "Are you satisfied now? You're obviously stronger than me, but you don't want to go up and let me take the limelight. You have a problem with that?" Qin Li raised his eyebrows. If you weren't my brother, I would really beat you up." Qin Xian roared angrily. "Brother Xian, can you beat Brother Li?" Qin Yi's unexpected question made Qin Xian feel discouraged. Although this bastard was overbearing and ruthless, he was really strong. The young man landed on the stone platform and ran to Shangguanqiu and Miss Sky Fairy with a smile, saying, "When did you come? And why are you with them?" "You know them?" Miss Sky Fairy was suspicious. "I met them in the Holy Dragon City not long ago." The young man nodded and whispered in Miss Sky Fairy's ear, "Aunt, let me tell you, they don't look like good people." You have to be careful. Think so too. Miss Sky Fairy nodded. Mu Qing looked at the two speechlessly and said unhappily, "Can't you talk in secret and pretend that we don't exist? You can hear it in such a low voice?" The young man looked at Mu Qing in surprise. Mu Qing rolled her eyes. Qin Feiyong glanced at the young man. The more he looked at him, the more familiar he was. However, Shang Guanxiu was obviously trying to keep him in suspense. He was really helpless. He looked at Qin Li and the others again. Although Qin Li, Qin Yun, Qin Wan, Qin Ji, and Qin Yi did not go up, it was not difficult to see that the strength of Qin Li and the other four was definitely extraordinary from Qin Yi and Qin Xian's performance. Immediately, he smiled slightly, got up and looked at Mu Qing. "It's about time, let's go. You're leaving." Mu Qing was stunned. "What's so interesting about this kind of little game?" Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. "What? The battle between the genius disciples of the human emperor palace is just a little game. This guy is too arrogant." The young man looked at Qin Feiyong in a daze. "You don't look like a big shot. Aren't you afraid of being beaten up by such arrogance? Don't talk nonsense if you don't understand." Shang Guanxiu glared at the young man and got up as well. The young man scratched his head and looked at Miss Fairy. What was going on? Miss Fairy also had a bitter smile. She could not understand Shang Guanxiu's current behavior. Who injured our disciple? But at this moment, this was accompanied by a ruthless shout. A small figure flashed in from the entrance like lightning and swept over the heads of Qin Feiyong and the others, going straight to Supreme Cloud and the beast race in the sky. Qin Feiyong looked at the back of this person and felt that it was somewhat familiar. This person was only about half a meter tall, and looked to be about 5 or 6 years old. He was wearing a red doudou with a ringing bell hanging around his neck. He looked pink and chubby like an auspicious doll. However, his body exuded an extremely shocking and ruthless aura. "Little demon boy." Shang Guanxiu transmitted his voice. "Little demon boy?" Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned. He tried to recall for a moment and suddenly understood. He said with a smile, "So it's him." Back then, in order to deal with the dragons, he joined forces with several half-step immortal realm experts. These people were the straw-shoe old man, the green-robed old woman, the burly man, the middle-aged couple, and the little demon boy now. He remembered that they had formed an alliance in the divine demon forest in the Nether King's hell. Although he was familiar with them and had fought side by side, he still did not know their names. However, he had always been grateful to them. If it were not for their help, it would not have been so easy to defeat the dragons. He did not expect to meet this guy again. He also had a deep impression of the little demon boy. Although the little demon boy looked like a child, the straw-shoe old man and the others were very afraid of him back then. "It seems that there is trouble again." Shang Guanxiu shook his head and sighed. "Trouble?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. He turned to look at Shang Guanxiu and found that Shang Guanxiu seemed to be looking at the little demon boy with some disgust. What was going on? The little demon boy was a comrade who had fought side by side. Why did he have such an attitude? Qin Feiyong looked at Miss Fairy again and found that Miss Fairy looked at the little demon boy the same way. Although you fought side by side to destroy the dragons back then, it was also because of this that the little demon boy became arrogant and did not take anyone seriously. He did not even show the slightest respect to Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast. But in the past, Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast were stronger than him, so he still had some concerns. But half a year ago, the little demon boy's cultivation had also broken through to the imperishable realm, which was on par with Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast, so he became even more unscrupulous. Shang Guanxiu sighed. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong could not help but frown. As for old Master Yizhong, you know his character as well. He values relationships and is generous and benevolent. As long as you don't cause too much trouble, he won't get involved. So without old Master Yizhong's restraint, Supreme Beast and Supreme Cloud can't do anything to him. Now, he is basically lawless in the ancient world. Shang Guanxiu transmitted his voice. Qin Feiyong looked up at the little demon boy, frowning. He did not expect the little demon boy to become like this. He was disappointed but not too disappointed. because he did not have much interaction with the little demon boy at all. He did not even know much about the little demon boy's character. He only knew that he was a violent person. Perhaps the little demon boy was such a person. In other words, this was his nature. However, the little demon boy's behavior made him feel a little uncomfortable. It was understandable that he was arrogant. After all, not everyone had the same character as Yizhong. But shouldn't there be a limit to taking credit and being arrogant? Chapter 43-58. In the sky, the little demon child stood opposite Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast, looking aggressive. Little demon child, what are you doing here? Supreme Cloud frowned. Didn't I say it very clearly just now? My disciple was bullied, so I came to you for an explanation. The little demon child said angrily. Disciple? Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast looked at each other and said suspiciously, what disciple are you talking about? Why don't we know that you have a disciple? Do I need to report to you what I do? The little demon child sneered. No. You must make it clear. How do you want us to give you an explanation if you don't know? A trace of anger crept up Supreme Cloud's eyebrows. Everyone is so familiar with each other. Why don't Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast know who the little demon child's disciple is? Mu Qing was puzzled. Not to mention Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast, even we don't know. Shang Guanqiu and Miss Fairy shook their heads. The young man standing next to the two was also puzzled. Never heard of it. Who was the little demon child's disciple? Master. Suddenly, a voice sounded. A blood-stained young man rushed to the little demon child's side like lightning. This person was Wang Xiyu. Previously, he wanted to bully Qin Yi with his 9th Heaven Realm cultivation base, but he was beaten up by Qin Xian. It's him? Shang Guanqiu and Miss Fairy were stunned. How is it possible? He is the little demon child's disciple? What's going on? I've never heard of it before. Everyone at the scene was stunned. Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast were the same. Looking at Wang Xiyu standing next to the little demon child, their faces were full of surprise. The little demon child looked at Wang Xiyu and said, Are you okay? Yes, I almost lost half of my life. Wang Xiyu looked aggrieved. A cold light flashed in the little demon child's eyes. He took out a healing pill and handed it to Wang Xiyu. Thank you, Master. Wang Xiyu took the healing pill and felt the countless incredulous eyes around him. His face was full of pride. You didn't expect it, did you? My master is the famous little demon child. It's not good. Qin Yun whispered. I didn't expect Wang Xiyu to be his disciple. You guys go first, I'll take care of it. Wang Yuer transmitted her voice to Qin Li and the others with a grave expression. No. We can't implicate you. Qin Li shook his head. That's right. I'm responsible for my own actions. I beat up Wang Xiyu. If this little demon child has any dissatisfaction, he can come at me. Qin Xian nodded. Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. If he knows your identities, then that's fine because they will definitely give your big brother some face. But now he doesn't know. You've been in the ancient realm for so many years. You should know what he's capable of. Those who offend him will not have a good ending. Wang Yuer thought to herself. But, Qin Li frowned. Wang Yuer said angrily, but what? A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Let's go. All right. Qin Li nodded. But at this moment, Wang Xiyu suddenly pointed at Qin Xian and said resentfully, Master, it's him. The little demon child immediately looked at Qin Xian. Wang Yuer's expression changed. She took a step forward and shouted without looking back, Let's go. Qin Li waved his hand, rolled up his brothers and sisters and turned to leave. Wang Yuer, do you want to protect them? Killing intent surged in the little demon child's eyes. Little demon child, I advise you not to kill them. Besides, this is just a competition between disciples. Now you're here to bully the weak. Don't you think it's beneath your status as the little demon child? Wang Yuer was not to be outdone. Her eyes flashed with cold light. What a sharp tongue. Do you think I'm afraid of you because you're related to Qin Feiyang? The little demon child was furious. His terrifying aura turned into an invisible torrent and instantly blasted toward Wang Yuer. Puff! Wang Yuer spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. Her face was pale. Sister Yuer, Qin Li and the others who had escaped immediately returned to Wang Yuer's side. Their faces were full of concern and anger. Little demon child, don't go too far. Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast also stepped out and stood in front of Wang Yuer and Qin Li, glaring at the little demon child. The little demon child looked at Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast and said, "Are you determined to protect them? There are winners and losers in the competition. Now your disciple is not as good as others. Who can you blame? If you don't want him to get hurt, don't let him participate in the competition," Supreme Cloud said in a low voice. "You know this is a competition. Shouldn't a competition stop when it's over? Why did you beat him up like this?" The little demon child shouted. Qin Li stared at the little demon child and said in a low voice, "Didn't Wang Xiyu think about this when he was about to bully my brother? He's at the peak of the ninth heaven's realm. How could he have the nerve to challenge a half-step ninth heaven's realm?" "That's right. You should go and teach your disciple a lesson instead of finding trouble with us," Yi Zichen said. Qin Ji, who was a man of few words, also spoke, with a cold light in his eyes. "But is your brother injured?" the little demon child asked. Qin Li said, "That's because my brother admitted defeat." "Admitted defeat? He can do such a thing without dignity. It can be seen that he's not a talent." The little demon child sneered. "What did you say?" Qin Yi glared at the little demon child. "Did I say anything wrong? Only a good-for-nothing can surrender without a fight." The little demon child sneered. Qin Yi was so angry that he laughed and said, yes, I'm a good-for-nothing, but what about your disciple? He has dignity. He was beaten up because of his lack of strength, and now you come to seek justice for him. Is this the so-called dignity? I'm afraid he's more embarrassed than me now. How dare you humiliate me?" Wang Xiyu's face was ferocious, and he roared, "Master, he doesn't take you seriously at all. Kill him." The little demon child stared at Qin Yi, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Supreme Cloud glanced at Qin Feiyong sitting on the stone platform, and then looked at the little demon child and said, "As an old friend, I kindly advise you not to make trouble here." "Are you threatening me?" The little demon child stared at Supreme Cloud. "No. I'm advising you out of kindness. If you don't want to listen, then pretend I didn't say anything. And if you really want to kill them, I won't stop you. Do as you please." Supreme Cloud said and retreated to the side. The corners of Supreme Beast's mouth lifted slightly, and he also retreated to the side. He looked at Wang Yuer and said, You step back." "Huh." Wang Yuer looked at Supreme Beast in a daze. What did he mean? The little demon child didn't know the identity of Qin Li and the others, but Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast both knew. Logically speaking, shouldn't they protect them with all their strength? Why didn't they care now? "Trust us." Supreme Cloud smiled secretly. Hearing this, Wang Yuer was even more puzzled, but looking at the confident two, she finally retreated to the side nervously. The unusual behavior of Supreme Cloud, Supreme Beast, and Wang Yuer made the little demon child quite confused for a moment. What did they mean? Did they really think he wouldn't dare to do it? Boom! His aura roared out. He swept in front of Qin Yi, raised his hand, and slapped Qin Yi's head. "This is the price of provoking me. Die." Wang Xiyu laughed sinisterly. But it was also at this moment. Qin Feiyong, who was sitting on the platform, suddenly got up, and as he took a step forward, activated the moment of time, and instantly landed in front of Qin Yi. So fast. Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast had been paying attention to Qin Feiyong. Therefore they had seen the whole process with their eyes. This speed was simply too fast for them to catch up. Who is it? At the same time, the others also saw Qin Feiyong, and a trace of surprise crept up on their faces. The little demon child's face also changed slightly, but seeing that Qin Feiyong's face was unfamiliar, and the aura he exuded was not strong, he couldn't help but sneer. He really didn't know what was good for him. Following closely, the palm that was aimed at Qin Yi was aimed at Qin Feiyong. Qin Li and the others also looked at Qin Feiyong's back in surprise. Who was this person? He was not afraid of the little demon child to protect them. The next moment, an amazing scene appeared. They saw that this strange young man with an ordinary appearance and weak aura actually raised his big hand and easily grabbed the little demon child's arm without causing any trouble. How is this possible? The most shocked person was the little demon child. He had a cultivation of the great perfection undead realm. Even if he was also an expert of the great perfection undead realm, it was impossible to grab his wrist so easily. I haven't seen you for many years, and your temper has improved, Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. With a little force from his 5 fingers, the little demon child's wrist was shattered on the spot with a crack. Blood flowed and dyed the void red. No way! Everyone present was dumbfounded. The little demon child, whose strength was comparable to Supreme Cloud and Supreme Beast, was so vulnerable in front of this person. Sister Qiu, what's going on? Who is he? Miss Fairy turned to look at Shangguan Qiu and asked. He was too strong. The terrifying little demon child was as weak as a chick in front of this person. Shangguan Qiu smiled without saying a word. Looking at the 7 people standing behind Qin Feiyang, he murmured, "You are really lucky to have such a great brother." Looking at the little demon child again, he took a few steps back in horror and stared at Qin Feiyang. Who are you? Could it be Yi Zhong? No. If it was Yi Zhong, he would not change his appearance. Could it be those 4 old things? The 4 old things he was referring to were the 4 guardians of the ancient world. But that was not right. He knew the 4 guardians, and they never asked about the worldly affairs. We've known each other for many years, but I really didn't know that you were such a domineering and unreasonable person. Qin Feiyang shook his head. We've known each other for many years? The little demon child was even more surprised. Qin Feiyang took out a facial restoration pill. Facial restoration pill? When everyone saw the pill, they could not help but stare at Qin Feiyang's face. The 7 people standing behind Qin Feiyang could not help but move their feet and look at Qin Feiyang's profile. Although Shangguan Qiu, Supreme Cloud, and Supreme Beast already knew, they could not help holding their breaths at this moment. They knew that once Qin Feiyang showed his true appearance, it would cause a big storm. They were also looking forward to seeing the little demon child's expression when he saw Qin Feiyang's true appearance. Chapter 43-59. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Qin Feiyang took the facial restoration pill. That moment, his face began to change. It seems familiar. It's getting more and more familiar. Everyone looked at Qin Feiyang's face change in surprise. Finally, a face that made countless people crazy was clearly presented in front of them. You are. The little demon child looked at Qin Feiyang in disbelief. Must be dreaming? How could it be this person? Wang Xiyu, who was behind him, also rubbed his eyes hard. It's him. Qin Feiyang. He's Qin Feiyang. My God. What did I see? It's the legendary figure who once destroyed the dragons and saved billions of people in our ancient world. This is crazy. I never thought it would be him. After a brief moment of silence, the human emperor palace suddenly exploded. Everyone's face was full of worship and admiration, as if they were looking at a god. Qin Feiyang looked at the little demon child and said with a faint smile, "You didn't expect it to be me, did you?" His voice also changed back to its original state. Looking at this familiar face and listening to this familiar voice, the little demon child's eyes suddenly trembled and his face couldn't help but turn pale. You weren't like this back then. Could it be that people in the world can't escape this rule? As their strength continues to grow, their character will also become more and more inflated? Qin Feiyang looked at the little demon child indifferently. The little demon child's body trembled and his legs couldn't help but go soft. He had an impulse to kneel down. This was an instinctive fear. Because back then, he had witnessed how Qin Feiyang destroyed the dragons and destroyed the Divine Dragon Island. So he knew Qin Feiyang's means. No one would have a good end if they angered this person. Qin Feiyang turned his eyes and looked at Wang Xiyu, who was standing behind the little demon child. Wang Xiyu was just a junior. How could he have the state of mind of the little demon child? He was so scared that he knelt in the void, trembling. Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, "Do you know who the person you want to kill is to me?" Wang Xiyu shook his head. When little demon child heard this, he also stared at Qin Li and the others in surprise. Could these people be related to Qin Feiyang? Qin Feiyong opened his mouth and said, "They are my blood brothers and sisters." What? Little demon child trembled both physically and mentally. These 7 people were actually Qin Feiyong's younger brothers and sisters? Needless to say, Wang Xiyu was so scared that he wet his pants on the spot. He never thought that Qin Li's group of 7 actually had such a big background. And before this, he actually wanted to kill Qin Feiyong's younger brother? Wasn't this courting death? Meanwhile, hearing Qin Feiyong's words, the countless disciples in the air above the islands looked at Qin Li's group of 7 with extreme shock. Qin Feiyong's brother and sister. What kind of status and glory was this? They really didn't expect that these 7 low-key people would have such an amazing identity. Not to mention anything else. Just based on this point, the 7 of them had the capital to look down on everything. Why didn't I realize it before? Otherwise, if I married any one of the 3 sisters, I would have a meteoric rise in the future. Many disciples were annoyed. If they could become Qin Feiyong's brother-in-law, wouldn't they be able to do whatever they wanted in the ancient realm in the future? Brother, is it really you? Qin Li's group of 7 looked at Qin Feiyong and still found it hard to believe. Qin Feiyong turned to look at the 7 of them and said with a smile, "Who else could it be if not me?" Brother. The 7 of them looked at Qin Feiyong's face. Even Qin Li, who had a cold personality, couldn't help but have tears in his eyes. And Wang Yu were next to him. Tears flickered in her eyes. On the other side, Miss Fairy stood on the stone platform and also looked at Qin Feiyong in disbelief. The young man next to her was even more exaggerated. His mouth was wide open and his eyes were about to pop out. Brother, when she came back to her senses, Qin Yi, the little girl, immediately threw herself into Qin Feiyong's arms. Smelling the familiar smell, she scolded with a sobbing tone, "You still know to come back? Do you know how much we missed you?" Qin Feiyong stretched out his hand and patted the little girl's shoulder. He said with a smile, "I missed you guys too." Then he looked at Qin Li's group of 6 and waved his hand. Come, let big brother take a good look." Qin Li's group of 6 ran up with tears in their eyes. Sure enough, they are all his younger brothers and sisters. Looking at this scene, the expression in everyone's eyes changed. Could they be so strong? No wonder they could create their own divine arts. No wonder Wang Yu took care of them so much. They were all Qin Feiyong's younger brothers and sisters. Oh my God. I really envy them. Why wasn't I born in such a family? If Qin Feiyong was my big brother, how good would that be? Not bad. They are all as handsome as me. Qin Feiyong looked at Qin Li, Qin Ji, Qin Xian and Qin Yi and smiled. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but laugh. They didn't expect this guardian to be so humorous. The corners of Qin Li's group of 4 couldn't help but twitch as if they were complaining about Qin Feiyong. Saying such words in front of so many people, wasn't it embarrassing for them? Qin Feiyong looked at Qin Yun, Qin Wan and Qin Yi and said with a smile, "And you 3 girls, you have all become big girls. How are you? Do you have a boyfriend?" Brother. When the 3 heard this, their cheeks suddenly turned red and they couldn't help but angrily stare at Qin Feiyong. Can't you pay attention to the situation when you speak? Yes. Brother-in-law, I am their boyfriend. At the same time, many men roared in their hearts. They really hoped that they were. Unfortunately, how could he take a fancy to them? Haha. Qin Feiyong laughed loudly and gently pushed Qin Yi away. He reached out his hand and gently combed Qin Yi's somewhat messy hair. He said with a smile, "Don't cry. If you cry again, you'll become an ugly duckling. No one will like you. You are the ugly duckling." Qin Yi glared at Qin Feiyong with dissatisfaction. How could he say that to his own sister? But in her heart it was especially warm. So gentle. I really want to be Qin Yi. Yes, I also want such a gentle brother. Many women looked at Qin Yi with envy, because they could all see that Qin Feiyong really doted on these 3 sisters. Qin Feiyong patted Qin Yi's head and said with a smile, "I want to say a few words to your sister Yu. Then you can't bully sister Yu. She has taken care of us all these years." Qin Yi said. "When did I bully her?" Qin Feiyong was speechless. "You bullied her in the past." Qin Yi pouted. Qin Feiyong's face darkened, and he said angrily, "Little brat, don't meddle in adult matters." "How am I little?" Qin Yi puffed out her chest and raised her back, approaching Qin Feiyong. Okay. It's my fault, my fault. Qin Feiyong's face was bitter. This girl didn't know how to be reserved. How could she be like this? Only then did Qini smile proudly. So what if he was the guardian of the ancient world? So what if he was strong? In front of this super cute sister of mine, didn't he still have to raise his hands and surrender? Qin Feiyong shook his head helplessly, walked to Wang Yu'er, opened his arms, and said with a smile, "Long time no see." Long time no see. Wang Yu'er calmed down the emotions in her heart and went forward to hug Qin Feiyong gently. A charming smile also appeared on her face. Damn. Their relationship doesn't seem to be ordinary. Everyone murmured. Many people in the ancient world knew that Wang Yu'er was related to Qin Feiyong, but they didn't know what the relationship was. Although the relationship between the two wasn't very clear now, it wasn't difficult to see from their smiles that it was definitely not ordinary. How have you been these years? Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. Wang Yu'er nodded and asked, how about you? Qin Feiyong said, I'm not bad either. Thank you for taking care of these little guys all these years. Wang Yu'er glanced at Qin Li and the others and said with a smile, they are your younger siblings, which means they are mine. It is my responsibility to take care of them. What do you mean? It sounds a little ambiguous. Are they a couple? But I heard that Qin Feiyong seems to have married another woman. What's going on? Everyone looked at the two of them suspiciously. Qini looked at the crowd behind her proudly and said, you don't know, right? Sister Yu'er is also my brother's sister. I see. Everyone came to a realization. This should be the relationship between the two of them. But even if she was his sister, it was still enviable. However, when Wang Yu'er heard Qin Yi's words, there seemed to be a trace of disappointment on her face, but it wasn't obvious and was quickly replaced by a smile. Qin Feiyong glanced at the countless disciples of the human emperor palace and said with a smile of praise, I have been watching your sparring. Whether it is the winner or the loser, they are all very good. They are much stronger than us back then. Huh. Much stronger than you back then. Sir, please don't joke around, okay? How can we compare to you? All the disciples were flattered. Of course. In some aspects you are indeed inferior to us back then. The most obvious is that your combat experience and awareness are obviously insufficient. But I also know that this is not your fault. After all, the current ancient world has entered a period of peace. I also hope that this peace can continue. As disciples of the human emperor palace, you are the role models for others. So in the future, you must be a good example and work hard to maintain this rare peace. Qin Feiyong smiled slightly. Yes. The disciples suddenly couldn't help but roar loudly, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Qin Feiyong nodded with relief. As long as the disciples of the human emperor palace were responsible, then no matter how chaotic the ancient world was in the future, it would not be like before. Immediately, he looked at the little demon child again. Qin Feiyong, this is a misunderstanding. The little demon child's eyes trembled and he hurriedly explained, looking extremely flustered. I saw it with my own eyes. Is this still a misunderstanding? Qin Feiyong said with a pleasant smile, without the slightest threatening aura. But the little demon child couldn't help but be afraid. He stammered and couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. Everyone looked at the little demon child with a look of disbelief. The little demon child, who had always been ruthless and lawless, didn't even dare to breathe loudly in front of Qin Feiyong. Was this the deterrent power of Qin Feiyong? It really opened their eyes. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.